Hello, hello, hello. Today is the day. I've been putting this video off for months. I said like as soon as the new year started, I was like, I'm gonna make a plant tour video. It'll be perfect. And then maybe I'll do another one at the end of the year. No, nah, it's May. We're doing it in May. And realistically, I think the only reason why I finally was like, I need to make this video is because I move in literally a week. So I'm not even packed. Nothing's been packed in this place. Move in a week. I needed to make this video before I started packing because I felt like this is like the final hoo-ha. But I am very excited. The last video I did was in 2023. I don't remember what month I did it. I'm pretty sure it's been over a year now, if not like we're on that cusp. So it's gonna be cool to see the differences, especially in like my taste, the things that I kept, the things that I've gotten rid of, what I'm kind of really into at the moment now versus back then. It's kind of fun. I think it's really cool. So I'm very excited to kind of get into the nitty gritty of it in general. I wanted to put some ground rules down because I felt like I needed to put some ground rules down. I've mentioned it in very little detail in my past video, but I am working on kind of doing my own little plant shop. It's still very much in the works, but I do have inventory here. I have it kind of scattered, not scattered, but it's in two specific places. Those plants I will not be showing or talking about. I don't consider those a part of my collection, considering that they can leave/go whenever at any time. So I'm not really going to go into the nitty gritty of those. So that's the first one. The second thing, I'm not going to remember all the Latin names, and I'm a really big person with the Latin names. I just like knowing the Latin names. It helps you identify the exact plant. Is it necessary in every single situation? Probably not. You're probably going to be able to look at something and tell it's different compared to something else, but still, it's just something I really like to do, whatever the case may be. I might not be calling the plants by their Latin names. It might be more of a common name, but I will be putting the Latin names down. So that's just something I wanted to make sure. I also just don't remember every Latin name. And I'm gonna be real, I'm probably not gonna remember some of the common names for some of these because I am like fried in the brain right now. There's so much going on. But either way, I'm very excited. I think I want to start us actually off in the kitchen. I feel like the living room we're gonna stay to the end because that's where all the good stuff is. That's a lie. There's good stuff everywhere, but we're going to start in the kitchen. We're going to get into the nitty gritty there, and I'm going to kind of show you what I have and then kind of give just a quick little rundown of each little plant. Alrighty, we have made it over to the kitchen. Now, the majority of my plants are going to be on the windowsill pretty much. This is a south-facing windowsill. I do have a couple plants on the top of the cupboards. Should they be up there? Probably not, but they're there and they're alive, so sorry. To get started, we are going to talk about this very cute little Hoya that I have here. This is a Hoya vitellinoides. Vitellinoides is, I'm pretty sure the pronunciation, but I got this at the first vendor event that I did a couple, like I think almost a month ago now. And I got a couple of things, which ironically, they're all on the windowsill, I realized. So that's kind of cool that I can talk about them all in the same go. And this was from a local seller. I just love that it's in this cute little glass pot. I really liked the shape of the leaves. And also they have like this really cool like splash on them. And it has like kind of these pinkish hues. This leaf, it kind of lost the hue. So I'm assuming as a new leaf comes out, you see it a little bit more, but even then, this one still has like that little bit of vibrancy pink to it. So I'm a big fan of it in general. I don't typically keep my Hoyas in like a no drainage situation, but this one is already in it. I see roots. So this is kind of like a fun experiment for me to kind of learn and see what is the best setup for Hoyas. Or let me rephrase that. What is the best setup for Hoyas for me? Because I have really good success with Hoyas in I think a couple different ways now. For the most part, I feel pretty confident about Hoyas. I think the biggest thing for me that I'm learning right now, other than like seeing how this one does in like a no drainage situation, is also how lighting affects Hoyas. I think a lot of the times in my head, I'm like bright light, they'll do good. And for the most part, that's not wrong, but I definitely feel like depending on the species, sometimes those little details make a difference from it thriving and really growing versus just kind of staying stagnant. At least in my experience and kind of what I'm dealing with in my personal collection now. You look good. Oh, damn. The next one that I am going to be talking about, you can kind of already see a little peek of it, but this is my Euphorbia. It starts with an L, I can't remember. It's not a trigona, but it's also known as the ghost cactus. I am in love with this freaking Euphorbia. It is so gorgeous. Obviously the white is just such a fun statement piece, and I think it's just so pretty. But what's really cute about this plant is the little leaves that it pushes out. I don't know how well you can see them, but now I don't know what it was. Like, last week something clicked and everything in here started just like growing. I know it's the growing season, but it's almost like they all just like woke up and they were like, I'm ready. This being one of them. So much new growth is coming out. It's like making secondary arms. I have new growth there. Obviously up here too, this is crazy. It's getting super, super like wide compared to the older parts of it. I am so excited about this cutie here. I feel like in general, euphorbias are so like fun and laid back, and they're not like your typical cacti, which is also kind of nice as well. And there's a lot of variety in euphorbias. There's this one species that I saw and I love it so much. It literally looks just like sticks, like a dead like stump, but then it also blooms flowers. And I think that's just such a weird combination to see, but it's also just so like unique. I don't know, it's just so fun, but I'm a huge fan of this. It's been super laid back. I've had it in this pot forever, and like you can kind of see the roots are slowly starting to come out. So this and a whole lot of other plants in my collection are kind of at the point where they really need a repot. But just because I knew I was moving very soon, I didn't want to touch anything. I kind of learned the hard way last year. I did repot a bunch of stuff like about a month before I moved, and most of it did good, but I did have a couple that ended up just like died. And so, which was kind of a bummer. One of them being my first ever plant, which was a pothos. So like sentimentally kind of sad. Other than that, didn't really care too much, but that's besides the point. I wanted to hold out just until we move, but once we move and kind of get some stuff settled in, this is getting a repot along with a lot of other stuff as well too. Alrighty, so next on the list, we have a Haworthia. I actually do not remember the species name at all, nor do I know if it has a common name, at least this specific one. Haworthias definitely aren't my cup of tea typically. There's a lot of really interesting species and I can admire them from afar, but I just have never cared to own them and like grow them in my own collection. This one though, I really love how tall it was getting. And I also remember seeing a photo of, I think this specific species, I might be wrong, but it got really tall. And I was like, that's kind of cool looking. I kind of dig it. And so I've had this one for a decent amount of time. I had it at my old space as well. So it's been over a couple years now, I think at least, or almost 2 years. And in the time frame, it's been a pretty slow grower. Outside, it didn't really grow too much. It was blooming, which was cool, but not a lot of growth. Now that we've been in this space, it is pushing out a lot more new growth. You can see it's more green than it is darker on those tops, which is a really cool thing. I'm happy it's growing. Another thing that's really fun about this is when I had it, originally I had this bigger piece and then this one, and this one. So it is pushing out another little pup, which is super cool. And then this one's really hard to see, but it's also pushing another one on the back side. So I like it. I'm not like opposed to it. I think if I potted this in like a really fun pot and did like a really pretty top layering, I think I would like it more. I just kind of have it existing. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I'm like, I don't hate you. I don't want to like get rid of you, but I'm kind of just like cool with you existing. And it's really low maintenance as well. So I can't really complain too much about it. Next up, we are jumping into some carnivorous plants. So I actually do not know what this is. I got this for free at a plant shop. I think I bought something and they were just handing them out, or they just gave it to me. I don't remember, but it is some type of sundew of some sorts. There's multiple in there, which is really cool. I've had this in this container since I got it. This is how I got it. I have not changed anything. And I think the reason why I'm a fan of this one is because of the low maintenance aspect for me. Because it's in here, it has a lid, this thing stays just super humid and moist for honestly like months at a time. So I don't have to water it too much. Every once in a while I will spritz it with just some distilled water, but it seems to do really good. I kind of just keep an eye on the condensation. If I notice there's not a lot of condensation or it looks dry, I'll just give it a good quick little spray. Now, I think in the future, I do want to separate this because it looks like there's a lot of little itty bitty ones in there. So I think I could separate it, but I just haven't really done anything with it. And I think I'm okay with that because it's just so chill and it's just kind of existing. So I'm like, thank you for existing. I don't have to think too hard about you. Our next one I have here, sorry, I have to drain it so it doesn't just drip all over the place, is a Drosera. It's this little cutie here. I always forget, I think it's Drosera capensi or capensis. It starts with a C, I don't remember exactly, but I am a huge fan of Droseras. I really, really love this guy. I had one before, it was doing really good. I made a video on it. I was really, really excited about it. I don't know how the hell I did it or what the hell happened, but it got mealies. And in my head, I was like, okay, I don't know how to treat this. I feel like I wasn't able to spray it down. I was like, okay, do I need to do like reverse osmosis water and then use like a type of like insecticide on it? But then I was like, that's just gonna kill it. Like there's no way. And then I also was just in my dumb head was like, maybe like they'll eat the mealies. No, the mealies did not get eaten. So it got to a point where it was just raggedy, dusty, like really, really looking ugly. And so I was like, all right, I'm calling it. So I got rid of it. I still really wanted one, but I was kind of just hanging out. And when I was at the vendor event that I did, there was a table that was selling a couple carnivorous plants, but more specifically these. And they were so pretty and they were so dewy. And I was like, sold. Like, I need one of these again. So I'm very excited. I've been keeping it on the south facing window. Whoever had it before definitely had it in higher humidity. At least that's what my assumption is. It has dropped a lot of the bottom leaves, which I'm assuming is just it kind of acclimating and adjusting more than anything. It is pushing out a ton of new growth. Now, I'm kind of waiting to see if that new growth is smaller or bigger, and then I'm gonna kind of gauge what I wanna do with it. I won't have a nice big south-facing window at this new place, so I'm already gonna have to decide if I'm gonna keep it in a cabinet or if I'm gonna do anything different with it in general. But for the time being, it's thriving over here and she's been eating good. The fungus gnats are out. It's warmer now. I got to treat everything, but until then, she's been eating. So very much in love with this. I want to do something fun with it in the future, but I'm kind of just letting it exist and like watching and seeing how it kind of adjusts. And then I'll kind of make a play with it later on, I think. My next one I have here is actually cuttings. It is my Hoya linearis. Ooh. So this one I ended up cutting. I actually took a ton of cuttings. The mother plant just like gave out. I don't know why, but she was done. And I said, okay, that's fine. Like, you know, live your life. That's none of my business. I ended up taking a ton of cuttings. A lot of the cuttings in here were like the last of the last cuttings. I kind of did them in groups because a part of me was like, well, maybe it will survive. No, it never did. I did a group one of them a while back, and for the most part, that whole group that I did ended up rooting really well. I ended up putting them in soil. They're growing now, which was really cool. I ended up selling, I think, like 3 out of the 4, and then I have another one that I'm growing for myself in case these don't make it. These were super dehydrated when I ended up cutting them. I was like probably days away from it being like, yeah, no, there's nothing you can do. But they revived and like thickened up pretty well, and they are putting out some new growth, but we're still in the early stages. They're barely still starting to kind of get rooted up. The one that is pushing out a little bit of growth is the one that has the most roots so far, but I'm kind of just letting this exist. I'm a huge fan of the linearis. I know a lot of people, I didn't realize this plant was really sought out. I got this thing for like 15 bucks forever ago, and then when I was looking to sell them, I was like, oh, like let me just see how much people are putting them up. You can't find like a 4-inch pot for like less than 60 bucks, which was crazy. I did not realize that they got that popular and that expensive, first and foremost. It is really crazy to see, but I love them. It's really pretty. They remind me of like a weeping willow, the way they kind of just droop down. I want to keep one long enough to see them bloom, or like keep it healthy enough and like get it to grow out well enough. I've had it for years now, but now that I've cut them, I don't know. I feel like I like reset the clock. So I don't really know what I'm gonna get out of it, but as long as I'm able to get this to grow and I can get it potted up and I can see movement in the future, I'm cool with it. I always kind of want to just make sure I have one of these in my collection. I'm not gonna say it's my favorite Hoya by any means, but I still really enjoy it and appreciate it. And I think there's like a little bit of a sentimental value to it for me. So this next one here, I literally do not know what it is. I have no idea. I have no answer for it. I really don't. I got this at the vendor event. I bought it for one specific reason. It was this lady and her 2 kids. They were so cute and so sweet. They all did like a bunch of like pots. Like they pretty much potted a bunch of plants together from like, I think their like own collection, backyard, things like that. And they were kind of just doing like a fundraiser for their dog because their dog had to get, I think, their tail amputated. I don't know. I don't remember all the little details. I heard that part and I was like, here you go. So I think I spent like $3 on it. I didn't even need the plant. I was happy just to give a little bit of the money. But even then, it is really cute. I like how it grows. I'm pretty sure it's something that would do good outside. That's why I put it over in the south facing window. And it's been giving me new growth. It's given a couple new growth points as well. So if you know what this might be, like definitely let me know. It's cute. I really like it. It's definitely something that I think I will end up throwing out on the balcony when it's time. And I think it'll do pretty good. I definitely think so. I don't really have too many comments on this one though. So next up, I have a really, really fun one. I'm more than positive it is a Stapelia. I can't remember the species name, but I think it's also known as like the starfish cactus or something like star cactus. This one is so fun. And when I got it, I was so excited because when these guys start to bloom, they produce this huge bloom that is kind of star-shaped and it looks like a starfish. It's gorgeous, smells awful. It literally smells like doo-doo. Like it's so gross and it sucked because I don't have an outside area. So I did get to see the bloom. I got to admire it for a day, but then afterwards it started smelling like a bathroom in the kitchen. So I had to chop it off, unfortunately. I am excited though, because it is growing a decent amount now. I haven't seen it grown in a while, but I think now that the weather's warming up, it's like in it. I am excited though. I definitely think I will be able to get another bloom out of it. And this time I'll be able to keep it outside and let it last longer. In regards though, I've had it on the south facing window. It's definitely getting sun stressed. So for a while I thought I was cooking it and it wasn't doing good, but it's pushing out new growth. It's looking a lot better. I feel a lot better about it as well too. What is really cool about these ones too is it looks kind of like what you would expect a cactus to look like, but they're fuzzy. Like they're kind of soft and fuzzy, which is like so interesting and so cool. I had to get the step stool for this one because it's just so, it's so big and it's higher up than I can reach. Okay, without destroying everything in the kitchen, preferably. This is my Epiphyllum anguliger. This is also known as the rickrack cactus, also known as, I believe, the fishbone cactus, but this is one of my like pride and joys. I did a longer video kind of talking about this one like a couple videos back, so I probably won't go into like the nitty gritty of this plant, but I just adore this one so much. It has grown crazy. It is kind of taking over, to be quite honest. I do really like it. I'm happy to see some of the new growth. I do notice that compared to some of the older leaves, so like we'll talk about this one for example, you can see that it's a decent sized leaf. It's decently like larger compared to some of the newer growth, which is a little bit more smaller. Now, I don't hate the smaller growth. My hunch to it is that I think it might be getting too much light or it dries out too much in between waterings. So I don't really know which one it is, but I do know I really want to trim this one. I think I want to take away a lot of those older leaves, like this one, for example. I want to cut this off because it's old, it's used, it's not going to ever really look pretty again. And I kind of want to get back to being able to show off the pot a little bit better. You can see it kind of, but for the most part, it's really hard to see it. But I'm a huge fan of these guys. I'm really into epiphyllums and I'm really into ripsalis. Those are like the one things that I see them and I get really, really excited. I think a huge aspect of it is because of just how laid back they are for the most part. They're not really needy, which is always a plus, but they're also like a fun trailing plant. Like I said it in the previous video, like no hate to like pothos or like other plants in general as well, but come on, like this is so fun to have in your space and to be able to grow, especially if you have the lighting and you want something a little bit more unique that can trail and things of that nature. The next one that I have is the heart-shaped leaf philodendron. Now this one this was a propagation that just never got taken care of. So it is grown pretty long. I want to say this vine alone is longer than me and I'm about 6'3". So it's cool to just see it kind of exist. The other reason why I just am kind of a fan of this one in general is this. I just think it's so cool seeing all like the roots and stuff in the water. I don't ever change this water. I just top it off. And it's been doing really good. Obviously, the leaves on the top were a lot bigger. The bottom ones have gotten smaller as time goes on. They're a little bit darker, so I can tell they're like getting somewhat sun stressed, which is cool. But I don't really like have any plans for this. I'm kind of just letting this one exist and kind of admiring what it does. I feel like that's like the best way to explain it. But we'll see with the move. I don't know where I'm gonna put this, to be honest. I can maybe do something fun with it, but I don't know. We'll kind of have to see and adjust. I also probably could cut this up and like actually make a whole like 4-inch or even maybe a 6-inch pot of this if I wanted to, but it is definitely doing pretty good. It's cool to see some of the aerial roots kind of coming out. It hasn't grabbed onto anything quite yet, but I did see it was trying to like kind of stick itself into the Hoya because it's right by the Hoya linearis, and I did see that this newer like top part, that part was on the leca, so it was definitely like kind of starting to, I think, attempt to root in it in general. So the last one that I have on the windowsill is definitely one of the most, I think, unique plants that I own, at least in my opinion. I'm probably gonna butcher the name of it a little bit, but this is the Welwitschii mirabilis. Believe the mirabilis is how it's pronounced, but that's the part that I think I might be butchering. They are typically found, if I'm not mistaken, in the Namib Desert, which is somewhere in Africa. I can't remember if it's like southern or western. I think records show that they can grow anywhere between 500 to, I think, 2,000 years. It might be 1,000. I might be wrong. I might be really overshooting that part, but still, 500 years is absolutely phenomenal and so crazy. And what also makes this so interesting is they only grow 2 leaves their entire time. So a lot of times in nature, when you find these or see them, or photos of them, I should say, they look like a huge bundle and it looks like it's producing a bunch of leaves, but through just the natural weather and just how it grows out, a lot of times they will shred, and that kind of causes them to separate and kind of makes it look like they have more leaves. But overall, just so fascinating, so interesting. What makes this plant also really, I think, interesting as well is there's not a lot of information online about care. For example, I can Google any plant that I've talked about so far. I can probably just Google its name and I will be able to find some decent information that's going to tell me how I should take care of it. At least for me, when I was digging and trying to learn more about this, I was not able to find anything on Google, really. I wasn't able to find any YouTube videos. I wasn't able to find anything that really talked about care and talked about how to grow them. A lot of the videos were like, I have one, look how good it's doing, but nothing on that part, which made it so hard to like feel confident about what I was doing with this plant. I ended up finding a Facebook group that is specifically for Welwitschii, and there was someone who actually posted this huge document of like all their trials and tribulations of like growing them from seed. What do they run into? What do they do? What is this? And I took a lot of that information and it definitely helped out, but I still felt like I was just kind of existing with this plant. There is another content creator that I know that does have this plant and also shared a little bit of information about care, and that was Benji. Now, there's probably other people who have this plant that do content creation, but at least in regards of care videos, I was not able to find really anything. But the one thing that Benji mentioned that I didn't read anywhere and I never really found any information on was to leave this in like a small amount of water pretty much almost at all times. And I started doing that probably over the past like month or so. And it's definitely more vividly green in the center. Now, when I started trying this out and I started seeing the progress, I was thinking about it more, and it honestly does make more sense that this is kind of helping it. These guys also grow a very specific taproot that I think can end up being almost 30 feet long. And that is just to kind of tap into like water deep in the ground. So to have it sitting in water and allow it to absorb it that way is kind of how it would be in nature. So I'm assuming that's kind of what's helping, but after I tried that, I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. This is such a good idea. Got me really excited. So I still don't feel, I'm like 70% confident with this plant, maybe 60, maybe I'm reaching. I feel like I'm getting better with it. I'm feeling like some of that little information that I found out is working out well. I think my biggest thing that I really want is just to repot it and like get it into something a little bit taller more than anything, and to allow that taproot to grow even longer, because I do think that has a huge aspect of how big it can get and how fast it can grow. I might be wrong, but based off of what I was reading, I kind of feel like that has something to do with it in general. But such a cool freaking plant. we are getting close to the end of what I have in like my kitchen area overall. This next one I really love. And I know what I need to do to take care of it, but I'm not doing it. So I'm kind of just letting it like do okay and then like suffer and then do okay and then like suffer. But it is going to be this fern here. It is a blue star fern, I want to say. Ooh, I might be wrong. I don't really mess with ferns too much other than platyceriums. It is doing okay. You can see what's happening is it puts out all this new growth. They're looking good. They look like they start to size up. I'm like trying to get back to this, you know, really, really gorgeous. And then I don't know, they just die. My biggest issue is it doesn't obviously want to ever dry out, but I can't have it sit in water because where I have it is it's too dark. So if I do have it sitting in water, it ends up typically starting to, like some of the older leaves will definitely start to die off. You get that little bit of mush. It's just a no-no. But then if I am like trying to watch it and maintain it and make sure I water it at like the right time, I'm always just like a day or two off and then that new growth just dies off. So it is kind of a struggle. I'm not necessarily gonna say I love ferns. I do want to try to get more into them. I know I could do good with this. There's just a little bit of a higher maintenance to this plant, and I think for a decent amount of ferns. So I think that's my biggest issue. If I got like a self-watering pot, I think my problems would go away for the most part. But I haven't really done anything crazy with it. It's in a nursery pot, just sitting in this pot. So it's not like it's potted in here. So I don't know, maybe in the future I'll try something like that and see how it does. I feel like that might be the trick that I need. I don't think it's a humidity thing. I think my humidity is fine in this space. I think it's generally just trying to make sure it doesn't stay too wet and it doesn't dry out too much. That's kind of where I'm at right now with it. So the next one that I have here is known as a rat's tail cactus. This is a prime example of a plant that should not be where it's at, but I have it there and it is existing. It actually is growing a decent amount. It's all of these smaller arms specifically, but I love this plant so much and I didn't want to get rid of it when we moved. I got rid of a decent amount of stuff that I had outside just because it was too pokey or I was too worried about it and or there was just not a place to put them. This one was one of the ones where I was like, I am keeping you. I will find a way to make it happen. So it did finally end up on the top there. It was not enough light. It never was enough light, but it has stayed pretty consistent. So I will say if you ever wanted one of these, if you want to like grow it out very well, you can probably put it somewhere a little bit, not too dark. I should be cautious, but you probably can get away with putting it somewhere darker than you would expect. And it'd still be able to grow. Obviously, the growth points are really small. It's not anything spectacular, but I am very excited to get this one outside on the balcony. This is gonna pop off, and I know it is. I'm so excited. It's been holding on so strongly for me to get that nice, sweet balcony lifestyle. And this is one that I think I honestly might put out immediately. Maybe not, we'll see. Depending on the temperature, I think I'll end up putting it out. But I am excited to see how this one does once I do that. It's a cactus, you know, it's not anything super crazy in regards of needs and whatnot. It did have a mealy issue at one point, but I think I am happy to say that I have eradicated all the mealies in this one. So makes me feel really, really good. I do love it. It's just not giving because I'm not giving for it. So we'll see how it does once it gets that balcony lifestyle that she deserves. I actually almost forgot one over here, so I do want to grab this and show it off real quick. This is a orchid. I don't know the name of this orchid. This is like your typical grocery store orchid. I've never really messed with orchids. This was a gift and I have been taking care of it since. It's pushed out a lot of new leaves and it actually rebloomed for me. It was super, super cool. I just have it in moss. It's kind of just existing. It's really dry and definitely needs water. But someone actually commented on my last video saying that I should take a peek into some more orchids, which I have seen some really cool specimen. I just haven't ever really done too much research on orchids and the needs and the expectations. I guess a part of me always assumed they needed like really high humidity, and I think I've kind of been just naturally like about it, but I have seen some very beautiful specimens and I think it could be something I can mess with in the future, depending on where I'm at and what I'm into in general. But this is my little grocery store orchid. Now, the last two plants, I'm not gonna take down. One, I don't really want to take down one of them, and the other one I'm scared to take down. So that's kind of the reason there. I'm going to talk about them and then show you some videos of them. But the first one that I want to talk about is your good old-fashioned ZZ plant, your Zamifolia, Zama something. I've had it forever. It was a gift when I worked at a mortgage company, so a very, very long time ago. And I kind of always have had like a ZZ in my collection, only because there is always a place that's really dark that I want something in, and so she's the one that just goes, and she's a trooper. She makes it work. I don't really have much to say on the plant itself. It's a ZZ plant. If you know, you know. They're very laid back. It does still grow for me. I don't remember the last time I watered it. Great plant for someone who literally doesn't ever want to think about having a plant. So the last one that I am going to talk about that's in the kitchen is going to be my philodendron rojo. It's also known as the red Congo. You're gonna see really quick why I didn't want to move it. The way that I have it growing right now is pretty much, instead of having it grow upwards the way that it should, I'm kind of forcing it to grow outwards. I wanted something in that corner to fill it up and like take up a lot of space, but look pretty and vibrant. And I kind of was trying to train this one to do it, and it's doing good, and it's been growing like this. But every time I water it, I can see it like leaning more and more forward. So realistically, we're like one leaf away from it probably falling over. And so I'm scared that if I take it down now, I won't be able to get it back up to where it needs to be. So since I'm only here for another week, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do some quick footage of it that way. But literally so laid back. This plant just grows. It doesn't give me any issues. Even with the lighting up there, it's still producing pretty decent sized leaves. And as soon as the newest leaf hardens off, the next one's already showing up. So I can attest that it's a really good philodendron if you want something just that's really laid back and easy, but very like green and like pretty foliage. The rojo is also really cool because when the leaves first come out, they're kind of more of like a copper color, pushing into that red, and then as they harden off, they go into like that darker green. So a really laid back, really cool philodendron. I have no complaints about it. I do not know what I'm gonna do with it in the new place, because if I remember correctly, I don't have any like top space above. So, oops, we're gonna see. I might have to force it to like kind of like grow more upwards again. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Now that we've gone through the kitchen area, I think the next area that I'm gonna take you to is like the entry of the apartment, or like the walkway into the apartment. I have two cabinets over there. One is specifically stuff that, like I said, is for like more of my like inventory and like business aspects. So that one we will not be opening and looking at. The white cabinet that I have, everything in there is all my personal collection. So we're gonna be talking about that and the things on top of that cabinet as well. Alrighty, we made it over to the entryway. I always have such a hard time like setting up and like filming this area, but I think this is like the best it's looked in like any of my videos so far. But to start off, I wanted to just give the most simplest of simple shout outs to this Sansevieria. I don't know the exact type of Sansevieria it is, but this is also one of those ones where like I have it the same way I have a ZZ. It's kind of just to fill in any area that maybe I do want to plant, but it's too dark or whatever the case may be. Now, as always, especially for these and ZZs, they still really want light. So if you have a spot that gets a little bit of light, that's good. I wouldn't put them in like a bathroom with no windows, if you know what I mean. But this one I also hold a little bit near and dear because I got initially 3 cuttings from my grandma's big mature one that is like, I think 20 years old now. It's huge. I took 3 cuttings a while back, a couple Christmases ago. I was back when I was living at the old place, and it is now turned into this. So it's cool just to see how filled out it's gotten and just how much it's grown in general as well too. Very laid back, you know, I barely ever water this thing. I check it once in a blue moon, and for the most part, it's doing good, and it's still putting out a lot of new growth. I have a lot of little babies over on this side right now too, so I'm pretty content with it. I'm pretty happy with it in general as well too. Next up, I have the saddest excuse of a plant. This is my Scindapsus. I always forget, I think it's like known as like the satin pothos. She might get sold. I might get rid of her. This might be like, whoever wants this for $5, like come pick this up kind of vibe. I know I could cut it and like fill up the top and like maybe try to do something with it, but I don't think I really like Scindapsus. I don't think I get the hype. A lot of the times, and I might just be doing something wrong, but a lot of the times they just end up curling up, or they just don't really look that pretty. definitely like a personal opinion. Do I think they're ugly? No, I just don't think I have really good experiences with them, and I don't think I don't do a good job of making them pretty, is I think what I should be saying. But I could cut this, I could propagate, and I could try to make a whole nice little fresh pot, but I think I kind of am giving up on this one in general. I don't think I really care anymore. So this next one I am such a huge fan of. This is my Calathea orbifolia. Now, I think Calatheas in general get a pretty bad rap, at least in Arizona, just because a lot of the times they need higher humidity, they're kind of more of a pain, you know, etc., etc. I think the orbifolia is like the one that doesn't fit in that category. The amount of times I've forgotten to water this thing, or it's gone way too close to drying out, or just all kinds of different like situations, and it doesn't ever do bad. Like, do I have a couple little brown edges? Absolutely. But if you've ever had like the Maranta L, I always forget what it's called, or like I even have a Jungle Boogie, which I'll show later on, you like even mess up the slightest bit with those, you're done. Like, they curl up, they get brown, they get really ugly, and it's hard to like kind of bounce back. You have to be so consistent. And with this one, I don't feel like consistency is as important for its growth. It will still grow, it will still look really good, and I have no complaints. It's pushing out new growth now. I think having the grow lights over here from the cabinets kind of give a little bit of that supplementary light has been more than enough for it to thrive and do good. I love this thing. I love it so much. I also think this would be such a cute like floor plant. Like, if I didn't have a bunch of cats that would, if I didn't have a specific cat that would mess with this, I would absolutely have it on the floor, just because it's where they naturally grow in like the jungle, and I think that just looks so right. But I do like it up here. You still get to see the beauty of the leaves, and yeah, I'm a very big, I appreciate this plant very much. And if you're someone that is interested in trying a Calathea, or you just really like the orbifolia, but you're like, oh, I don't want to mess with it, it's Calathea, just give it a shot. I don't think they're that hard, and I think they're a lot more forgiving than others in that family. Now we're getting into the inside of the cabinet. I usually sit down and like grab stuff out that way. Freaking hate the pink light underneath there, and it just messes everything up. So I think we're just gonna grab them out one by one and just show them this way. I think it will look better and be a lot easier in general. So this first one up is going to be a Hoya. This is my Hoya Merrilie. Now, I've had this one for a long time. I actually got it when I was out in California. I found it at a cute little plant shop, and I'd never seen it, and I saw what they look like when they're sun stressed, and I was in love. I was like, I need this. It has never grown for me since, and it was getting to the point where I was actually gonna see about repotting it, but now, all of a sudden, she is just showing off and giving me a really, really nice tendril, and I'm so excited. The new leaf is also coming in, and it is so sun stressed. It's so beautiful. I'm very, very happy about this in general. What's so crazy, and I mentioned it before that I'm like figuring out Hoyas a little bit more. This I had in the same spot for months. I moved it 2 inches, like literally shimmied it back just a little bit more closer to the grow light, started growing. It's just so like crazy how you just have to have like the littlest change will make all the difference. So now it's growing. I have it like right underneath that grow light now, and I'm just so excited to see this one kind of continue out more and more. I will say, out of all the stuff that I have in my collections, I think I'm starting to get a little bit more into Hoyas. I'm getting a little bit more into like Ripsalis and Epiphyllums. I kind of group them together even though I shouldn't. And I am also just really into like Codex and Platyceriums. Those are like the groups right now that I'm like, yes. I still love Anthuriums and I still love Philodendrons, but I'm not caring as much about them anymore. I'm definitely way more like, I think, into those other ones. And the one trend that I'm realizing with all those ones is that they're all like more low maintenance for the most part. They can be high maintenance, but they're mostly low maintenance. But either way, I'm so excited to see this one continue to grow out. Hopefully it will start producing some more leaves, and we'll see how big those leaves get. I don't want to repot it, but I do feel like this is a really big pot for what this is. But I also don't know what the root system is looking like underneath the hood. So I still need to decide what I want to do about this. The next plant that I want to show off is the cutest little guy. This is my little pinguicula. It's a Pinguicula moriensis. This ping is actually doing pretty good, which I'm very happy about. This is one of the first pings I've ever gotten, and I felt confident with it, but still, it's always hard to tell how things are gonna go. Now, when I got this ping, it wasn't potted in anything. It was not bare root, but it was just kind of in like a little container. It needed a pot, so when I potted it up, I think I manhandled it a little too much, and I was very worried that it wasn't gonna pull through. It got really ugly, but it's bounced back a lot. Now, I will say it's smaller, and I do know pings will kind of shrink depending on like the environment slash like the season. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this to get any bigger in the conditions that I have now, so I am thinking about maybe changing it up. I've been scared to take them out of the cabinet. I've wanted to put them over by the south-facing window, but I've been nervous about it. But I'm a huge fan of them. When they bloom, it's just so cute. I don't know why, but like if you know what Pikmin are, they remind me of Pikmin. I think it's just because like they're super cute and then they just have the goofiest little flower that comes out. Do they look like Pikmin? Absolutely not. I think it's just the flower part. But either way, I am very happy to see it growing and doing good. I also really want to mess with propagation because I know you can just pull a leaf off and kind of use that as the basis. And so it'd be cool to have like an army of pings and to do like a cool like terrarium-esque thing with like lava rocks and do something really fun with them in general. Continuing on with some of that ping love, I have another little ping here. This is Pinguicula emerginata. I'm definitely not the best when it comes to the hybrids or just the general species of Pinguiculas, but I still just love them. They're all so cool. You can kind of see compared to the other one that I showed before, this one's a lot bigger. I don't really know why. They have the same exact conditions, the same lightings. I just think I was a little too rough on that one, and it's just been slowly kind of rebuilding itself. This one, as soon as I repotted, it was fine. I had really no issues with it. So kind of think that's a big part of it in general too, but I just adore these. You can see right off the bat what I was talking about with the blooms and like the Pikmin thing. It just reminds me so much of it. It's so cute, it's so delicate. I adore it, and it's also such a pretty bloom. I also love this one too because it has like kind of it's pushing into like a purplish reddish hue. I don't want to say maroon, but like it's a pretty color more than anything. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but if you don't know, Pinguiculas are also carnivorous plants. So they're kind of in like that same care routine as like the Dracaeras or Nepenthes. They like to stay moist pretty much all the time. Distilled water, reverse osmosis, rainwater, something on those terms, and they should do pretty good. This thing has bloomed like 15 to 20 times. I'm not even kidding you. This is an older bloom, this is the bloom now, and there's another bloom coming in, and I took off like 7 dead blooms before I took a video of this one. So it is very happy, it's doing very good, and I just love it. So the next plant that I'm gonna show is one that I do really like and I do appreciate. I just don't know if I wanna like keep it anymore. I'm kind of just like, eh. And you'll kind of see why really quick. But this is my Florida green, but it was technically a Florida beauty at one point. It did end up reverting, which is okay. You know, it's something that can definitely happen. But as much as I love the leaf shape and the size and the way it's growing, it's just, I don't have room for it. I don't. This takes up half that cabinet and it's so stupid and I shouldn't keep it in there, but I don't really know where else to put it. And like, it's pushing out new growth. It's doing really good. I don't know. I'm kind of just like torn. I feel like I might sell it, but in general, it's been a super laid back plant. You can see how massive it is for it being in a 4-inch pot. It's actually really cool. The only problem is it's so top heavy now that like I have to push it against things, like against the glass and like honestly on top of other plants just to help like keep it upwards. But other than that, very laid back philodendron. I really do love the leaf shape, I'm not gonna lie. And taking it out of the cabinet and looking at it now, it is very pretty. But I think if it just didn't revert, I think I would be more inclined and more excited for it. I don't even know too if I were to get like another cutting or if I even got like a plant that was growing out that definitely wasn't gonna revert. I don't know if I want like a Florida beauty anymore. I definitely think I fell into the hype of it. I will say it's a gorgeous plant. I just don't know how I feel about it anymore. Still trying to decide. We'll see how I feel. This next one I have here is a very interesting and fun plant. I'm pretty sure it counts as a Codex plant. I would be surprised if it doesn't, but this here is my ant plant. You can kind of see that Codex-like base there. I forgot the specific species, and I honestly don't remember the Latin name. I know it starts with an H, but like that's all I got for y'all right now. The reason why I think this plant is just so unique in general is the symbiotic relationship it has with ants in the wild. So a lot of the times these are more of like an epiphyte, so you'll find them like attached to trees or things of that nature. And inside the codex, which it might be hard to tell now, there are little tunnels and crevices that are made by the plant. It's not like something went in there and did it. It's how the plant is set up. And they have a symbiotic relationship with ants where the ants will live inside of this codex and then, in theory, will protect the plant itself. That's just so cool, and it's so interesting that like that's just how nature works. I think that's why I love this plant so much. When I got it, she was in rough conditions. I did get her for free, but it's growing a lot. It's putting out really, really good growth. I want to do something with it soon. I just haven't decided what. I also just don't know if I want to just keep letting it grow out in the conditions that it's growing, because it's doing really, really good. I don't think it's pushing out any new like growth points from the base, but because these are epiphytes, I kind of want to like mount it onto something. I think it'd be really cool. I just haven't really made the move, and I think once I actually move, it'll give me a better idea if that's something I should maybe do or not do. In this space, I have places to put this thing that would do good, but the other place I still need to figure out how the lighting is going to be and how I'm going to substitute, because I definitely will have to substitute a little bit. The next one I have here is the saddest thing alive. Well, I don't even know if we should say alive anymore. This is my Anthurium werequenum. Originally, after having this thing in moss forever and it growing really nicely, I tried to transition it into soil. Month or so later, it ended up rotting out. I moved it into a smaller pot, and now we're here. The chunk is still firm, so it's still alive, but I just don't know if I'm going to be getting anything out of it. So a part of me wants to take it out of this and maybe put it in like a water leca situation and see if that works. And a part of me also wants to maybe just ditch the idea of soil for my anthuriums and maybe try something else, like either, I don't think I want to do leca. I like leca for propagation. I don't like leca for like growing plants. I don't do really good with it, but I'm thinking maybe I can start to mess with maybe like pon and see if that might help with something like these. I feel like I see anthuriums in ponds and they seem to love that stuff. So I don't know. I want to grow it in something other than moss, because for whatever reason, I would get new leaves, it would look pretty, but then the old leaf would die. Like I couldn't help it maintain. And that was like my biggest goal in moving it into soil. And this is what I got in return. So I'm not hurt. I'm hoping I can save it. If not, I would get another werequenum. Even though it's a pain and I can't like just have it out in my living room, it's still a beautiful plant. It still produced beautiful leaves. I don't know. It was fun to have, and I would like to continue to have it if I can. Next up from the cabinet, I have this very, very fun Hoya. This is a Hoya SP Germany. I got this from a plant event a while back. I can't remember how long ago it's been, but it's been growing. Kind of. I would say it's growing, but it's been slow, but I am starting to see more leaves finally. It gave me a nice long vine and then that was it. But so far, this has been a new leaf, this is a new leaf, and this is a new leaf. And this one's pushing out, and then there's two coming out there. So she's doing her thing, it's working. This is also in pon, and it's very rooted and it's looking really good. This is how I got it. I didn't put it in pon. I'm still trying to learn pon and understand it a little bit better. I haven't really messed with it though, but I do have a feeling that I need to do something with it soon. I will admit I do want to move it into soil, but I am scared that I'm going to just kill off any progress that's been made. So I'm still kind of thinking about it in general. My biggest issue with pon, there's like no way to put it in like a cute pot, you know? Like unless it's like a pot that has aeration stones and maybe like a self-watering pot that you can convert. That's like the only way I can think of like having like pon and it being cute and looking nice. Other than that, that's like my biggest struggle. And like I know that's a really stupid struggle, but I want stuff to look nice. And like if I have a cool pot for something, I want to put it in the cool pot. So I don't know. That's like my biggest dilemma, but it does produce like these really cool, like almost like Jurassic Park like leaves that I just can't get enough of. I always say Did I say Jurassic Park? I don't know why I said that. I was gonna say prehistoric is more of the vibes, which I guess ties into Jurassic Park, but you know what I mean. I don't, maybe you don't. I don't know. But I am really happy about the growth on this one. I do want to do something with it soon just because it is starting to get a little bit more length on it. And I want to either give it a little bit more support, like a trellis, or I don't know, figure out something for it. And the last plant actually in this area is going to be another Hoya. It is my Hoya latifolia SP Sarawak. It's also known as the dinner plate Hoya. I love this thing. When I got it, it was just these 3 leaves. It's pushed out this, and it's doing good. It's kind of stopped growing, and I have a feeling I know why. This thing is super root bound. It is in the smallest little cup, and this thing dries out extremely. Oh, damn. This thing dries out extremely quickly. So I can tell the leaves just naturally don't feel as plump. They definitely have lost the darker green. They're a little bit lighter, almost pushing yellow. So I hope I'm not killing it. I need to move it into something a little bit bigger. I just haven't done it. There's a lot of things that I haven't done that I need to do, and I will do, but I don't know. I'm just really, I'm really trying to figure everything out, you know? It's one of those things that I really need to do, and I'm gonna do it. I just haven't done it yet, is the best way to put it. I do love just how massive the leaves can get, and I'm hoping once I repot it, I'll start seeing a little bit more growth again. I just think this thing dries out quicker than I realize, and I think by the time I get to it, it gets a little mad that it's been as dry as it is. There's something really like fun about Hoyas that you can have just like one vine of them and it's still like very satisfying. Like you don't need a full pot, if that makes sense. Like this is more than enough for me, other than it just getting longer, if that makes sense. Now that we have finished this little entryway area, we are gonna go into the bedroom. I don't have too many plants in there, so it shouldn't be too long of a segment, but after that, that's when we're gonna get into like the bigger chunk of things. So we have made it to the bedroom, and the first plant I wanted to talk about is my Dracaena. This is specifically my Dracaena marginata. Now, I got this from my grandma during the holidays, so it was probably about like December-ish when I got it. I did post a short, and I think a TikTok as well, of me repotting this plant and kind of like showing the root system. It was doing really good. It is still doing pretty good. The one thing that is kind of weird about this plant so far is ever since I repotted it, I have yet to need to water it. So it's been months, like months. And I feel like that's a really bad sign typically, but nothing is dying and there's slow growth. So I'm not gonna mess with it, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of just been existing. Now to tie in and talk a little bit more about it, the reason why I love it so much is with Dracaena marginatas, the only way you can get them to like curve and to look so pretty and to be doing kind of what it's doing is by age. And I think that's so fun about this plant is, I don't know how old it is, but it's spent time growing and kind of existing, and I just think it's so cool. I don't know, I'm just a huge fan. You might be able to see, I'm not sure, but I actually have thumbtacks in there, and I also have fishing line holding them up. So that's the reason why I'm not like holding it out and like showing it too much, is because this is kind of like put in place to not move. I originally did have it on the farther side of my bedroom, but I ended up moving it because when I did have it over there, I was getting yellow leaves a little bit more often. So I just think moving it over here was a better call. I get a lot more light in this area versus that corner, and it seems to be doing pretty good now. I'm just kind of waiting. I feel like the day I need to water it is the day like it's gonna start acting like a normal plant, but until then it's kind of just doing its thing, and I'm not too bothered. It also has a really small growth point, but my cat has been notoriously chewing on it, so it's not the prettiest, but I'm hoping at some point it will get tall enough that he can't really mess with it as much, and I'll start being able to have some prettier foliage on the bottom part as well. But truly cannot get enough of this plant. I think it's so interesting. I think it's so gorgeous. And like I said, it's just a very unique specimen, the way that it's shaped out. So the next plant that I'm going to show is bad. Like, it's bad. And I just like, I care, but I don't care, because I've been fighting with this one for years, I want to say at this point. I think I can confidently say years, with its mealy infestation. But this is my Hoya Crimson Queen. Now, I do have a lot of love for this plant because this is my first ever Hoya that I've ever gotten. And when I got it, it was in a very small little pot that had like one like little vine in it. So it has grown a lot, it has done a lot, and I'm very proud. But as you can probably see, not only is it mealy infested, but it's also covered in cat hair because it's on my desk and the cats just love to jump on it. I have consistently been fighting forever to try to get the mealies off of this plant. I can't win. I don't know what to do. A part of me kind of wants to just give up, but also I'm just like, I really do like this, and it is a really pretty combination, especially with the pot. But when I say infestation, any of the newer growth points are literally covered in white fuzz. And it's super gross, and I probably should be grossed out, but I'm more just tired. Like, I'm so tired of this. Like, other plants, like, for example, the rat's tail cactus. I believe my adenium also had a random mealy on it at one point, or mealies, and I treated it and just gone. Like, no issues. I don't know what it is about Hoyas, but it's, like, impossible to get rid of them. Like, I can't get rid of them. It's just so frustrating, and I'm just so eh. But it is beautiful. And what's so funny is even with all this annoyance of mealies, it still grows really, really good. I'll probably treat it again for the umpteenth time and keep trying, but we're getting closer and closer to the point where I'll either put it up, I'll either repot it because I do want the pot. I'll either put it up and be like, yo, who wants to take this and deal with the mealies? Or I don't know. I'll do something with it. I am getting like tired of it though, just because of the situation that I am in with it. The next one that I have in my room is going to be my Monstera albo. Now, I love this Monstera. I really, really do. But it is growing very, very funky. I got this as a single leaf cutting. I've been growing it for years now. It's looking good. I'm actually very, very happy with it. And this latest leaf, which you can see, is absolutely gorgeous. I am in love with the variegation. It's so, so, so pretty. With this one, it was kind of one of those weird situations where I wasn't really sure if I wanted to cut it, specifically for the one reason being that the variegation was a little wobbly. Like it was, like for example, variegated, non-variegated, variegated. Was this the next one after that? Non-variegated. So like it's almost like every other leaf is variegated and then the next isn't. And so that was one of the reasons. Also, you can kind of see from how it's growing, it's just really funky. It's leaning like crazy. It needs support so badly. So I'm kind of trying to decide what I want to do. Though I am kind of not wanting to chop it only because I don't know if I can. I'll try to get like a better shot of it. It's just so hard because I have to hold the stump down here with my finger so it doesn't like fling off. But this newest leaf right here, I don't know if you can see the stem and the petiole, but it has a ton of variegation on it. So I kind of think we might be out of that like variegated, non-variegated, variegated, non-variegated. And I think I'm about to get very variegated leaves. So I don't know, I need to make a decision on what I want to do. I think I just really need to re-support it. And it's not even necessarily a repot is needed. It just needs to get restaked and it needs help. That's like the best way to put it. It just needs a little bit of help holding itself up. Overall, I'm super, super happy with it. It is gorgeous. It is getting bigger. It is giving fenestrated leaves. It's been a slow process, but it's been very rewarding watching it grow over the past couple of years from that single leaf cutting. Sorry, I adjusted the camera because I feel like I was a little too close when I was trying to show the last two plants, but I am excited to show you this interesting one. This is my Cissus quadrangularis. So you can see it's pretty long, and if I let it just like hang down, it can do it. I just don't typically have it doing that. I have it kind of climbing up a wall, but I've had this one as a single itty bitty little cutting and it has grown immensely. It is such an interesting plant. If I recall properly, it is more closely related to like a grapevine, if I remember, which I think is so fascinating. And I also repotted this one not too long ago in a no drainage pot, which made me nervous that I was going to kill it, but it's doing really good. It is starting to put out a bunch of new growth all of a sudden, so I'm getting very excited about it in general. I'm very, very happy. But I have some new growth there. I don't know if there's anywhere, oh, it's very small, but there's a little new growth point there. And then on the largest one, I saw like 3 or 4 Yeah, there's like at least 3 different points of new growth on these ones here. I'm hoping I can show the whole thing. It's definitely an interesting one. They put out these cute little tendrils to kind of help them like grab onto things, which it's super cute when they start to do it. But I really do love this plant. It's so fun. It's so funky. I want to do something with it. I just haven't decided what. I'm even contemplating if maybe I don't like it in this smaller pot. The main reason why I put it in this pot was because it's like a ceramic one. It's a little heavier, and the nursery pot that it was in could not hold it up anymore. Plus, originally it was just growing in moss, so it was time for it to, you know, get put into an actual substrate. So I don't know. I love it. I do have it pinned up against the wall, so in theory, when it's growing, it's like this, and then this part's just kind of hanging down. Kind of want to hang it in like a hanging planter, and I do have that UFO planter from Mipa's Pots and Plants that I have yet to pot anything in after forever of having it. This could be kind of a fun one. I don't know if I'd be able to have it hanging upside down the way I would want to, but I will say, just because of how thick they are, I don't know if I'd be able to put more than one, like this one in there. But if I'm starting to get new growth points out of these spots, it actually would be really cool to kind of see how it would look that way. I don't know. I think it could be a cool look depending on what it does. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. The next one that I have is known as a passiflora. I don't remember the exact type of species. I know the common name is like dinosaur foot, but it is doing pretty good. You can see it kind of looks a little sad the way that it's kind of just hanging off that way, but I did post a video, specifically a short, kind of showing what I was trying to do with it. I took it off of its setup just because it hasn't done what I wanted it to do all the way, but it's starting to. So I'm gonna reset it in a second, but I have it trying to climb up fish line because I wanted to see like it was almost invisible climbing straight up. I thought it would look really cool. My problem is because I have it in such a teeny little pot and these things do not want to dry out, I get really good growth and then it dies. And I get really good growth and then it dies. And then da-da-da, and it's just a non-ever, always reoccurring situation that I put myself into. So my goal is to keep up with the watering. I've been really good the past like 2 weeks, and so we're getting a really good foundation going. So it's kind of like a very hard game that I like to play. If I put it in something a little bit bigger, I'd probably be able to get away a little bit longer in between, but it's such a cute little like setup. This is actually supposed to be like a cute little teacup. My great aunt does pottery, and she ended up sending me this teacup setup, and I asked her, I was like, would you be mad if I put a plant in it? And she's like, no, that's super cute. So I ended up doing this, and I really do love the setup. I also have a small little air plant in one of the other little cups because I knew I wasn't going to drink tea out of these as much, and I wanted to showcase them as much as I could because I do love and appreciate her work so much. And I thought this was like the next best thing for me at least. So I do love it. Like I said, its nickname is like the Dino Foot Passiflora. It's super cute. They grow those little tendrils. You can kind of see that little green thing on the top. That's what I was talking about. I've been waiting for them to grow in because they haven't been pushing them out. But those are what will grab onto the fish line, hopefully, and start to help it climb up. But I'm also sitting here talking about this, realizing that there's literally no point of me doing this because I'm moving in a week and I'm gonna have to take it down anyways. So, you know, it'd be like that. Maybe I'll try it at the next place though. This next one I have here is, I'm pretty sure the latest plant that I've gotten, which was like 2 weeks ago. I have it in this little cloche right now, but you can kind of see this is a Stefani. I literally just looked up the name because I was so scared I was gonna butcher it, and I literally don't remember. It's like Stefania erecta. I know I'm butchering the first part, but this is that. As you can see, I'm very excited. I actually got this off of Facebook Marketplace. Someone put it up. I think it was like 10 bucks, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm so down. I love Codex plants. I talked about it earlier, and I've been keeping my eyes out for one of these for a while now. So as you can see, it is starting to push out some new growth. When I got it, it was just the Codex itself. I watered it, and I have kept it in a cloche just to kind of help get that humidity up, west-facing window, and it is doing so good. Very, very excited about it. It is pushing out a whole other little leaf point as well. So I got 4 growth points, if not maybe 5 coming in. I think just 4, but I'm still very excited about it. It's such a cute little plant, and if this is the erecta like I think it is, it should produce like really pretty like circular leaves. I know I've read a lot of things about like poaching and keeping your eyes out, so there are things that I try to keep tabs on to try to help negate being a part of the problem. Now, I did get this and then I did more research, and the one thing that I see very commonly is that every single one of these types of plants are poached. Now, I don't know if that's 100% true. I did read a lot of different links and a lot of different pages kind of talking about that, and that was also brought up a lot. So part of me is kind of worried about that aspect. I don't want to be a part of the problem per se, but I do very much appreciate and admire this plant, and admire most Codex plants in that case as well too. I'm excited to see how it grows in general. I'm kind of just waiting to see what comes next with it. It's gonna keep it, I think I'm gonna keep it in the cloche for honestly the entire time I can, just to let it like grow out more. Once it starts to grow out too much, I'll probably end up switching it out, and I'll take it out of the cloche and then just kind of let it adjust and do its thing. If I'm worried that the humidity got too high and there might be issues, then I might put it in a cabinet, but I don't feel like that's necessary. We'll kind of see how things go, but in regards of this plant, I am excited. I'm in love. It's so cute. Keeping up with the Codex plants, I have my Dioscorea elephantipus. I feel like I've said this name like 6 different times in a video now. I don't trust anything anymore, so sorry if I am butchering it. But I did showcase this one in one of my later videos, one of my absolute favorite plants of 2023. She does not look pretty right now, and I will 100% admit that. My issue at hand is it has grown out of this pot, and I need to water it almost every 2 days now, and I haven't been. So the leaves are yellowing, they're starting to crisp up, they're starting to dry. There's a lot of things that this plant kind of needs, but at the same time, because it's a Codex plant, I'm not too worried. If it gets to the point where, you know, it dies off, the leaves die off, and it's just like, that's okay. It typically will go back into dormant as soon as I water it and maintain it properly, and it's getting the correct like lighting and temperature and all that stuff. It should bounce back pretty well. It's been growing out forever. I never had a dormancy period either, so I don't know. I'll kind of see how I feel about it in general. I love the foliage and I want to keep the foliage in general, but I wouldn't be mad to kind of cut it back. But the biggest thing is I need to get a bigger pot for it. I just haven't committed. I think I'll end up throwing it in a terracotta, but I don't know. It would be fun to find something unique for it as well too. But in regards to this, kind of similar to the last plant that I showed, it has that funky little like Codex base. Now, with these ones, as they age, they start to get almost like a tortoise shell kind of shape to them. Like they start to like get really detailed. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's really, really gorgeous, really beautiful. I'm a huge fan, like I mentioned before, and I absolutely love this. This was kind of like my gateway into Codex plants in general, I would say. And I honestly recommend anyone to try Codex plants, especially like the Dioscorias. I feel like they're relatively easy to find. I do recommend if you do try to hunt one, if you can't find them locally, wherever you find it, just confirm that they're seed grown. You can kind of tell when something's seed grown specifically too, because for example, if you look at the one that I have, it's almost perfectly circular, almost like a perfect ball. A lot of times in nature, they can't grow perfectly because of the conditions that they're living in, rocks, whatever it may be. So if you're noticing ones that look super like deformed and like really like interesting shapes, those are probably poached. If you see someone selling it for a very cheap price and it's a very large one and it has no roots, that is a typical good sign that it's probably poached. A lot of times people will do that stuff and they'll kind of make it like oh yeah, it's super easy to root, which it is, but the goal is to not harm what's out in nature, but instead grow and have it that way. So either way, it is something that I always like to keep in mind in general, especially when it comes to these types of plants, and any other plant that might be getting poached at the moment as well too. I do know with these ones, a lot of times if you're buying it from someone, they'll typically put seed grown, and that kind of will help you there. A company that I can recommend off the top of my head that should have some probably smaller ones would be Botanical Wonders. I do know that they do seed grown, and I think there's another one. I can't think of it there, but I can definitely rep Botanical Wonders. That's also where I got my Welwitschia from. So really, really good business if you are trying to get some Codex plants. And they also have a really interesting selection in general. With the last plant in the bedroom, I have another passiflora. So this is a different species compared to the other, and when you see the leaves, you'll be able to kind of tell. But I'm also going to show you like the most raw, unfiltered, like this is just how I've been letting it grow. It's a mess, I know, kind of thing. But here it is. Sorry. This is the plant itself. So you can see this whole long vine that is just dead. I was being so consistent with it. It was doing so good. And this is what happens when you forget to water it. They just crisp up immediately. But you can already see I have a whole other vine that's coming in right now. All those little brown little hanging wispy things are all those tendrils that I mentioned before. So all of those are what will kind of, they're like almost like little hands. That's what they use to grab onto stuff and whatnot. Now, I do adore this plant. It is just a hard one to maintain if you are someone that is, if you forget to water pretty easily, I will say. That is like the probably biggest thing about it in general. Now, it is pushing out a ton of new growth. This is a whole separate point right here. Then you have this whole other vine that's probably the most dominant new growth on here. We also have another 2 little leafer that's growing right there, and then we have this one on the base. So as annoying as it is for it to like die and to have issues like it does come back quick. That is like the one thing that I do adore about the passifloras in general. I just need to be better at maintaining them. That is like probably my biggest issue overall. I believe the nickname for this is like butterfly or butterfly wings or something. It's something butterfly. I can't remember exactly, but like I said, the Latin names will be up there for all of them, so you can differentiate from the 2 that I showed. But I do love these passifloras. They are interesting. My head kind of wants, a part of me really wants to try doing like, I don't know, maybe like a self-watering pot and see if maybe that fixes my issue. I think it could, but in general, I'm kind of just letting it exist. With the move coming up, I'm probably gonna chop up a decent amount of it and maybe try to propagate, just because I don't want to take all of this over there. This is just a pain. So we'll see. Maybe I'll at least chop off the big part or any stems that are just not producing new growth, now that I already have some pretty established growth going on overall. But lovely plant, super fast growing, super fun. Just don't ever let it dry out or you're gonna suffer. Now that we finished up with the bedroom, it is finally time to make it into the living room. I am so excited to go over some of the plants in there. Now that things are kind of growing and things are moving, there's a lot of fun stuff going on in there. So I'm kind of just excited to talk about it and kind of like hype up the plants, if that makes any sense. Alrighty, so starting off in the living room, I guess I should have considered this like the kitchen because it is technically on the island, but I don't know, I guess I just did it in my head. But I have just a couple plants over here I want to talk about. The first one I want to give some love to is my philodendron Moonlight. I see a lot of names for this one, so I'm never sure, but when I got it, it was labeled as Moonlight. There is 2 technical plants in here. So we have this big, gorgeous one that is absolutely popping off with growth. And then I have this other one, which is also doing good, but it's just not pushing out that big of leaves. I thought maybe because I wasn't rotating it, it was the issue, but I've also had it just sitting on this side and it still just pushes out smaller leaves. So I'm wondering if it's at the point now where they're like fighting each other for like space to grow. I'm not really sure. It's still in a nursery pot, just in this pot. So I could pot it in and there would be more room for sure. I just haven't really done anything with it, but this has been such a laid back plant. It has grown so nicely. It's so gorgeous. And the new growth is so pretty the way it comes in. It's so vividly like kind of yellowish, and then it turns into like that pretty green. And as time goes on, it gets darker and darker as well. But I also do like the leaf shape. It's not anything spectacular, but I don't know. She's a classic. She looks good. You can already see the next one. I've talked about it earlier, but this is my Jungle Boogie. It's a Calathea Jungle Boogie. Now, we've gone through the trenches together. It was gorgeous at one point, looking phenomenal. Very proud of it in general. That was when I was living at my other space. I had it just sitting in a tray of water at all times, and it did great. Then I got here and somehow I got mealies, so then I had to quarantine it, and during the quarantine phase, it wasn't getting any of the correct conditions because I don't really have a good place to quarantine stuff. So it suffered a lot. It lost a lot of its growth. It lost a lot of the like bigger pretty leaves, and so it's definitely shrunken in size. Now that the mealies are taken care of and I have it just sitting over here where it's not really getting anything super direct, it's doing better. This is one of the newest leaves that it's pushed out. It's pushing out another one, and I believe this also was not too long ago, another new leaf. So the newer growth is coming in. It's smaller, which I'm okay with, but it's not coming out crispy and gross, kind of how the other leaves had started to get. This backside, you can definitely see it more of like that crispy kind of grossness. For a while, even the newer leaves would come in and they would already have like brown spots and smudges and things like that. So it was definitely frustrating, but we're on the right track. Now that I'm moving, I feel like I'm gonna drop the ball and it's just gonna get ugly again. So we'll see how that kind of goes. But this is probably like one of my favorite calatheas other than the orbifolia. Obviously, this one's a lot more problematic than the orbifolia, but the velvety soft leaves are so nice. And then the undertones of the red, it's just super pretty. It's a really cool plant. I do have an idea for this one and I'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think if I do commit to it, it would look really good and it would probably fix my issues that I'm having. The last one on the kitchen island is just a propagation. This is from one of the pothos at the law firm that I take care of. I took a bunch of cuttings just because I was cleaning up the plant itself and brought them home, and they have grown out like crazy. It's so cool to see all the roots and all the new growth that's coming in. I definitely want to pot it up. I just haven't done it. I know you've heard that. I know you've heard me say that already, but I haven't just done anything with it. But it's been cool. It's just been existing in this corner. I don't really have anything crazy to say about it. It's, you know, it's a pothos. It's doing its thing. Nothing too crazy there. Now, because of the lighting conditions in here and because I have these big windows, it's kind of hard for me to set up a way to showcase the living room. You know what? Hold up. I think I have an idea. Hopefully the lighting doesn't get too intense. If it starts to look bad, I might switch how I am shooting everything. But I wanted to start off with a plant that you can't see right away. And that is my Philodendron squamiferum. Now, I have no idea how well you can see this entire plant, but it is a big plant. I posted a video on this one a while back, but I actually got this at a plant swap a while back. I was looking at a squamiferum that they had. I saw the mother one that they had and I was like, oh, is that what it's from? That's like super cool, like kind of just complimenting it. And she was like, do you want the mother one for like 20 bucks? And I was like, yeah, I'll take that for 20 bucks. So that's how I ended up getting this big guy. It's pushed out a lot of new growth since I've gotten it. The leaves are definitely not as big as like the older ones, but I'm still not super upset. I still haven't really made a decision of what I want to do with this. I could cut it and, you know, propagate it and get some smaller ones and kind of grow it out that way, which does sound kind of nice, but I don't know. It is really cool. It would be cool to like kind of get it set up to where maybe I can get it like a trellis or something and have it like kind of climb up against like a wall or something. I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to decide, but this big beauty is so fun. You can kind of see, but my favorite part about it is the fuzzy petioles. The newer growth, you can see the petioles are very bright red versus the older growth, they kind of start to slowly go into like a more of a green tone. That is like my favorite part about the squamiferum is like the fuzzy petioles. It is kind of like my way of not overindulging and buying like a Philodendron serpens, because those also have a really cool fuzzy petiole, but the maintenance is a lot higher versus this guy here. Up next, I have my Peperomia radiance. Now, I'm not a big Peperomia person. I usually struggle with Peperomias in my personal collection. I just don't ever seem to have a good experience with them. I feel like I'm always getting the watering wrong, just all kinds of stuff. But this one's been really consistent, and I've had a really good experience with it overall. Now, at some point, it did have mealies, and I do think I see a mealy on it, which is definitely a huge bummer. But that's besides the point. I will treat it again for the umpteenth time. To be fair, I haven't seen mealies on this one for a long time, so if it's just starting to come back now and I can get it, I'm cool with it there. It's been in the same pot since I've gotten it, to be honest, and so it could go for a repot, but I don't know. I love it. It's fun, but I'm definitely starting to lose like the passion for it. This is one where I think I could sell and I would be okay with it. Obviously would treat it and trim it up and make sure it looks nice and pretty, but other than that, it's not like really hitting like it used to. To be fair though, I bought this one a long time ago because of how cheap it was, because I was like, well, if it dies, I'm not super far out, because I think I paid like $5 for it because it was a nice little small one. But it is a cool plant. It is a cool peperomia, and I think these ones I can do good with. I don't think I do good with like the really like bigger ones, like the raindrop, for example, or I think it's like peperomia Jenny. Like I just have never had good success with that one ever. It's always died under my care. So I have a hate-love relationship for peperomias, but this one has been a really good experience. I just don't think I want to keep it any longer, to be honest. Next up, I have my plumosa fern, which actually isn't a fern. This thing is closer related to asparagus than it is actually a fern, but I think a lot of people just see them, and the way that the plant industry works, it's just been labeled as plumosa fern. So I think that's kind of the big thing about them in general. But I do love this plant a lot. It's very dainty, it's very cutesy. Like those are the first things I think of. I do have some yellowing going on in general. I definitely need to trim back this. I didn't trim it for a while, and then I finally decided to trim, and it started to push out a lot more growth. So a part of me kind of wants to get rid of a lot of this bottom fluff down here and then start going from there. In regards to care though, it's pretty laid back. I think I was worried that it was gonna need more humidity, but I don't think it really needs anything super crazy. I wouldn't say any super direct light. It maybe gets like a little bit of direct light, but luckily the monstera, the above, kind of shades it when the light comes in. But now that it's summer, it doesn't really get hit with any direct light anymore. Overall, big fan of it. I think a lot of people see this and they're scared of it because they think it's just gonna crisp up and die, but it's honestly pretty laid back. This is probably the worst it's looked for me in a long time, so I'm not mad at it by any means. I know if I just trimmed it back, it would look a lot better, and it would also probably start pushing out some newer growth to kind of fill in as well. This next one is such a fun and like interesting one, and you'll see very quickly why I love it, because it's very similar to another one that I love. This is known as the, I think, shark tooth fern. I know it's not actually a fern. I forget the actual like Latin name, but it has grown out so much, and it's such a cool, I just like how it's growing out more than anything. I think that's why I love it so much. But from this long part that's hanging down here, this was the original, and then this little flat back here was the original. So all the new growth from like this here, it looks like it's also pushing out another one from the inside. It's just growing, and I'm so happy that it's growing because I really do like this one a lot, and I think it's just such a fun, interesting one too. The care for it has been super easy. Like it hasn't really needed much for me. Every once in a while I just check. As soon as it's like pretty much dry, I just give it a really good soak, but it can go like at least a week or two, at least from the conditions that I'm keeping it in. I probably could give it a good rinse. It's a little dusty, but my hopes is as well too, as this side grows out more, I'm hoping I'll be able to get to the point where it will kind of be able to balance itself out and I can have it more straight like this, because then it would look even cooler. So filling it out, kind of watching it and seeing how it goes. I do definitely recommend this one, especially if you like the epiphyllum that I showed before, the Anguliger, but you don't want like anything as pokey or as thick. This is kind of like long and like dainty leaf. Like I mentioned before, huge fan. I just think it's so funky and fun, and it's cool to kind of watch it grow. And I think I'm also realizing, I think I'm just a fan when things grow out. Like, I think I'm a fan when there's like one long leaf and then it starts to grow off from there. So like having this new growth come off of this and then another new growth come off of this, like I think that's what makes me love it so much, because I think that's just really cool when plants do that. Sorry if the angle's a little weird. I actually cannot move this monstera for a couple of different reasons, but I did want to talk about it. This is my Monstera deliciosa. This one is just a non-variegated, your typical run-of-the-mill monstera. I've had it forever. I actually took this out of my mother one a long time ago and separated it, and I didn't need it in that pot anymore, so I kind of just made it its own thing, and this is how it's looking now. You can see the older leaves are covered in marks and scratches from my cats, and they're starting to yellow a little bit, but the last two leaves that I put out were a lot larger and a lot more clean looking. Now, the main reason why I can't move this one, and also kind of another introductory to another plant, is my jasmine plant. So it might be a little hard to see, but you can kind of see this little vine that's kind of coming through. So the funny situation is my jasmine's on the very bottom of this bookshelf, and it has sneaked its way up off the aerial roots all the way through the base onto this leaf there, which is so cool and so fun. I love that it was doing that. It's such a cool thing to kind of see it trail and kind of take over and just exist. Originally when it was happening, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to, I won't be able to move it. But as I saw it kind of climbing up, I was like, no, this is super sick. Like, I'm a huge fan of this. So that's why I don't move that one or the jasmine specifically. So it might be a little bit harder for me to show those two overall, but the jasmine isn't really anything pretty. It's like one or two vines, and the main vine is literally the one that's coming off of the plant itself. I definitely think it's time for me to sell it. I really don't need 3 monsteras in my collection. I kind of don't really care about it that way anymore. I definitely think it's a really cool setup. I think if I staked it properly, it would look even more pretty. But for what it is and where it was at, I think it looked great. But after this move, I definitely plan on getting rid of it in general. I don't think I really care to have it anymore in my collection. Okay, I think I found the setup. This looks way better. But the next one that I want to talk about over here is my bundle of sticks. I really forgot the Latin name for this one, but I love this plant. It's so weird, and it looks like it's like dead, but it's super green, so you know it's not dead. And it's so interesting because it's hard to tell. They'll push out like little leaves, and it's really cute. Yeah, it's hard to really see, but they'll push out little leaves. Very laid back. I don't really do much to it. As soon as it's dried out, I give it a good water. These also bloom such gorgeous flowers whenever that does happen. Hasn't happened to me yet, but I'm hoping we'll get there soon. It's so fun, and I just cannot get enough of this plant. This was also one that was unfortunately taken over by mealies at one point, but through consistent treatment, I don't think I see them anymore, which makes me feel so much better. I was checking this one like every week and spraying it down, and I finally think they're gone. I think. But I totally would recommend this one. This one's a really fun one, especially if you like weird things. I think a lot of times when people see this one, they get confused and they think something's wrong when there's nothing wrong with it. This is just how it's supposed to look. Next one that I have here is going to be a ficus. This is my Ficus elastica. This is the ruby. I think that's just what it is. I think it's Ficus elastica ruby. I've had this forever. It was a little 4-inch. It's grown out a decent amount, but I really don't care for this one anymore. I'm absolutely ready to sell it. Nothing wrong with it. No problems, no growth issues, nothing. It's just I have no care or love for this plant. And it's not even the ficus itself. I think ficuses are super chill and super fun, but I don't know. I remember when I first saw it, I was like, wow, the ruby, it's so pretty, you know, XYZ. But even now that it's growing more consistently and I'm seeing new growth, I just am like, you're not really that cool. You're not as interesting as you were in the past to me. I definitely think I've kind of moved on in general from it. Still a very good plant. It, like I said, has done no wrong to me. I'm just not really in. Since we're still on the subject of ficus, I want to show my Ficus Shivriana. I feel like this is a really interesting ficus. One, yes, the color and the look of it is really gorgeous. And I do really like this ficus in general, but I don't know. I might be the only one that feels like this, but this like showed up and people were really hyped and then it disappeared. And I have not seen any of them at all. Like I don't see them for sale in any stores anymore. I don't see people growing them. I haven't ever seen like a larger specimen other than like a small 4-inch, maybe a 6-inch. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I don't hate it, and I love to grow it out more, and it is a really cool type of like variegation. I want to keep this one. I think that's why I don't like the ruby anymore, to be 100% honest. I don't think I need a ton of different Ficus elasticas. I think one is enough. And I would love to grow this one out a little bit more, but I'm very much giving this one the bare of bare minimums. Who knows? Maybe once the weather cools down, I'll put this one outside in that balcony area, and I feel like that might help it grow a little bit better. I have this just sitting on my coffee table, and it was getting direct light. It was getting, I think, everything it needed. It just hasn't been really growing that crazy, and it kind of grows more compacted. So I'm assuming it's just not in like a very good soil mixture. I've never changed it since I got it from its original pot. So I feel like if I gave it a little bit more love, it would probably grow a little bit better, but I'm cool with it kind of just existing how it is. Kind kind of like that it's small and dainty, but it would be cool to get like a large specimen of this and like really grow it out too. Next up, I have my gorgeous philodendron painted lady. Now, I definitely used to post, and I think on the OG video, it should still be the way that it is. When I originally got this plant, I was growing it on a moss pole, and it was doing really good, and it was really gorgeous, and then it started dying like crazy, and I finally just cut the top chunk off, I believe, and then I just propagated it, and now we're here. I potted it. It's doing really, really good. It's pushing out a lot of new growth. This is the newest leaf. It's not sizing up as much as I was hoping for, but I also am not doing anything super crazy for it, so I can't really sit there and be like, why aren't you doing anything? I'm just happy to see new leaves coming out more than anything, but it is still a very gorgeous plant. I think my only thing I don't like about it is once you start getting into like the older leaves, which the ones that I have are pretty ugly because kind of went through it in the beginning, they lose like that really fun, like kind of painted finish, and then they start to just look like a red emerald. And I'm just kind of like, I mean, as long as you have new growth coming in at all times, it looks fine. And like, it's not like this disappears after a week. It lasts for a long time, but seeing how the older leaves start to look and how kind of bland they are, it definitely just is like, to me. But I do really love this plant and I want to keep growing it out. But I'm not going to say I wouldn't sell it either. I will say that. So this next one, I can't move too much, but I think I can. I think the vine is long enough that I can lift it up. I do have my string of hearts here. So you can kind of see it. I'm so sorry. It's a variegated string of hearts. Not all of it's variegated, but the majority of it is. I have it kind of just trailing down this way. I have it kind of just dangling above my record player and kind of like wedged between the sound speaker. And it's growing all the way down here and starting to go down there. So it's exactly what you would expect from a string of hearts. They kind of just trail and take over the space, which is really cool. It's been growing really nicely. I originally wanted to pot it in that Mipa's pot a long time ago, but I kind of feel like I lost the urge to do that. I don't think it'll look as cute as I thought it would. So I definitely want to do something different, but in regards to this plant, so laid back. I think for the string of hearts, a lot of times people struggle because they overwater them more than anything. Like you kind of have to forget about them, to be real. I don't water this one ever. And as soon as I start to see some like brown leaves, or if I see them kind of curling a little bit, then I'll give it a good soak. And it does really, really good. It definitely went through a stage where it stopped growing for me and I wasn't sure if something was going on, but now that it's warmed up, it's definitely starting to grow more, which is super, super exciting. Other than that, I don't really have much else to say about it. Maybe in the future I'll chop it up. This is also another one where I don't hate it, but I don't like how this one's looking. So I think either fixing it or honestly even having just a smaller one would be more of the vibe. At least for me, I'm definitely in this stage right now where I'm trying to figure out what's worth it and what's not in regards of size, because I really do love big plants. But obviously I can't have all big plants, if that makes sense. So I think having some smaller 4 inches of ones that I really love, especially something like a string of hearts that's really good at trailing and I can just trim it and make sure it's filled, I think that's honestly more of like the play for me personally. Next up, I have a very, very fun philodendron, one that's pretty popular right now, I would say. I have my philodendron billet. I hear a lot of different names. I'm super sure it's billet though. This is the one that I'm like really confident about, where I'm like, no, I'm not gonna fight. Watch me be so wrong about it though anyways. But in regards to this plant, so laid back, so easy, so carefree. Like I barely have to do anything other than just make sure it's watered when it's time. They like to dry out in between waterings. It's one of those philodendrons that you don't need to think about, which is always so nice, so nice. Now, this is the newest leaf here. It has been consistently sizing up with each new leaf, which is also just very like rewarding, especially when I'm not really doing anything crazy. I'm a huge fan of this plant. It's also so cool to just see how big these leaves can get. This is kind of one of the reasons why I'm excited for it. My only issue is how far the petioles will stick out. I know a lot of times people will say like, yeah, these things will like take over. So I've seen people where they like kind of like stake them and like have them like pushed up a certain way, and like they do all these things. And so I'm definitely thinking about in the future when I repot it to maybe try to do something like that in order to like help maintain it so it doesn't just like take over. That's like my one thing where it's like I want this to grow big, but I can't have it like be this huge thing that takes up so much space that I can't just put like on a shelf or like in a corner where it like needs its own special zone. Like that's the goal, is to not have it need that. But overall, I'm very happy that it's just growing as smooth and as easy as it is. Next up, I have a Anthurium. Love her. I don't think she loves me right now, unfortunately. But this is my Anthurium Bessier AFF. Yeah, she's going through it. You can definitely see the crispiness. I'm not getting any new leaves. This was also one of the ones that I just repotted not too long ago for the first time in soil. And where I typically would see the new growth, I'm not really seeing. So I will admit that I am nervous about this plant. It also was dealing with spider mites not too long ago as well, and I probably should spray it again. So maybe I'll do that before the move, but no matter what, when I do move, I'm gonna go through and spray everything in my collection. I think it's something I realize I like to do when I move, just because even when I separate things, I know there's things that I don't realize that probably have pests and they get mixed up in a box and they're all moving together at the same time. So I rather just be cautious and treat everything when I get to that new place and then kind of go from there. But I do really love this Anthurium. It grew so easily for me. This was probably the fastest growing one when I originally got a couple different ones at the same time. Once again, I don't think soil is the play for me, or at least my environment is probably the proper thing I should say. I think I want to mess with pond, or I think it might be time to just throw them all back into moss as well, because I think I can get away with just letting them exist for now, but if I don't do something in the next couple months, I do think I'm gonna lose this the same way I lost the Werequenum pretty much. But other than that, it does push out such gorgeous big leaves. They're just not looking the healthiest and the most stunning as they have in the past, especially when they were in moss. It's almost like a night and day difference. So a part of me is disappointed in myself, but also it's trial and error. You have to try things to learn. And that was my first time moving Anthuriums from moss into soil and kind of seeing how things exist. Next up, I have another philodendron. This one is thirsty. First and foremost, very thirsty, but this was also one that I just repotted not too long ago. So this one is like that hybrid that I mentioned that I don't actually know what the hybrid is exactly. I was told it's like a melochrysum and something else. I don't know, but I'm just allowing it to exist. I put it on a moss pole even though I hate moss poles, just because I know this one would probably really appreciate it, but I'm already failing at the one thing with moss poles, and that's making sure that they stay moist. This is not moist. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to make a decision on what I wanna do there. It is gorgeous, and I had this just originally rooting in leca and moss, or no, just leca and water, and it was doing so good. It got to the point where it was so tall, it was leaning over. I was like, you're gonna snap if you push out another leaf. It's definitely slowed down growth since, but that's kind of expected, I would say, considering that I just took it from its normal cozy leca water situation and put it straight into soil. So I know it's probably focusing on root growth in general, but I do want to see kind of what happens with this one. Or if anyone can look at it now and tell me what it is. I don't think that's the case. Maybe someone can. I'm definitely curious to see. But it is a really cool type of philodendron. I would love to see it climb up and do a little bit more. This also might be one that I might end up putting in one of the cabinets just because it could fit and it would probably help at least get it attached to the pole, and then I can maybe see about bringing it back out and trying to maintain it that way. But it's definitely thirsty, I will admit. The next one that I have is kind of a mess right now. It is having a hard time holding itself up, which is like a good and bad thing. But this is my Philodendron tortum. So this big old leaf in the front is the newest leaf that it has given me, and it's looking so good. It is sizing up a pretty decent amount, especially when you're looking at some of the older leaves. I really love this philodendron because of the leaf shape and size. This did have scale at one point. That's why I'm looking at it, because I'm like, do you still have scale? But I'm pretty sure everything originally is dead. And so the last couple leaves that have came in looked a little weird, but I'm assuming that's because of the scale beforehand. I don't think it has scale still. But either way, I'm gonna spray down and do my normal routine when I move in. And If it does have it, we should be able to catch it then. But I do really like this philodendron. It's really interesting. It's really funky, especially when you think about other philodendrons and how they look and their growth. This honestly reminds me more of like a palm of some sorts, but you get the luxury of not having to deal with palms, if that makes sense. I just need to restake it because she is leaning a little bit, but I am excited to see how well it is growing so far. Next up, I want to show off one of my platyceriums. It was actually my first platycerium, and it is in dire need of a watering as well. This is my Platycerium bifurcantum. Now, we went through the trenches. Oh, I think we need to go through the trenches again because that is scale. Oh my gosh, I can't win. So originally this plant did have scale, and that was a huge issue that was causing a lot of problems. And this was my first time having a platycerium that had scale, and honestly this is my first time ever dealing with scale in the first place, and so I knew I needed to be cautious with cleaning and taking care of this plant, but I didn't really do the proper research, and what ended up happening was I scrubbed the hell out of it, which I knew was a dumb idea because of the trichomes, but like, I don't know, I guess I just had intrusive thoughts and they definitely won. But I ended up scrubbing everything off, and it did help, but it left bruises on so many of the leaves. So learn the hard way. I really think when it comes to these ones, you can't really spray down or do anything. You have to do like systemic granules in the moss, which can be a little bit of a pain to set up. I don't see too many, so that's making me feel a little bit better, but that does mean I have some work to do. It is growing a lot and it is looking good, and the biggest issue with the scale is it leaves like this weird type of like sticky residue. I'm pretty sure that's like their little poop or whatever. It's gross, it's like super gross, and for the longest time I didn't realize this had scale, and it was getting on some of my other plants, aka the tortum, which was a real big bummer. But now that I know, and now that I have kind of a better understanding, I definitely know how to take care of them. I do think it's just time to maybe re-add those systemic granules. It has been over 3 months, so I am wondering if maybe that's the reason why they're starting to show back up. But I do think in the future, I'm going to trim off a lot of the older leaves. I'm getting a ton of new growth now, and I don't hate this, but it's definitely really ugly looking right now. But with some of the newer growth that's coming in, it's giving you the little fork shape and the trichome, so it's nice and white and like kind of fluffy looking. I'm feeling a little bit better about it overall, but now that I caught it, I will definitely treat this one again. So the next one that I want to talk about is another Ripsalis. This Ripsalis, I literally do not know the name of. I completely forgot. I think it starts with an M, but I do know that they produce really pretty orange blooms. So if you are really good with Ripsalis, you might know which one this is, or you might be able just to look and tell. But I've had this for a little bit now. It's kind of just been existing, but it is definitely starting to grow more now that the weather is starting to warm up for sure, which is super exciting. Like I mentioned before, I'm definitely getting more and more into Ripsalis, and this one, like I said, once it gets a little bit larger, I feel like you'll really get to see the beauty of it. You can kind of see a little bit, but they kind of produce more like kind of flat leaves that are a little bit wider. But overall, I'm kind of excited to see how this one forms and grows. This was definitely like one of them impulse buys because I just really wanted more Ripsalis in my collection. But I'm thinking once the weather cools down, I might put this one outside to see how it does. I feel like it actually would do pretty good. If not, I'll learn the hard way, and I'm okay if I have to lose this one to learn, but hopefully it does good. And then next up, we have a Dischidia. I'm gonna be so blunt, I'm forgetting the name of this one too. So I'm looking real dumb right now, not knowing 2 plants back to back. All I know is this is a Dischidia. When I originally got it, it was in a 6-inch pot. It was gorgeous, beautiful, was in love with it. I don't know what the hell I did. It was like, I killed it. Like that thing was dead. I had like one little string of leaves left and I was so hurt because it was a gift, and I take gifts like super personal when it comes to plants. Like, I don't know, that seems like a really bad thing if like someone gives you something and it dies and you're good at plants. It's different if you don't know plants and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. That's different. If you like know what you're doing, or you at least think you know what you're doing, and then it dies, I feel like, at least for me, that I take that. I'm like, ooh, you know. At least for me, I feel like that's a bad sign. I feel like I'm a bad friend at that point. But It is so gorgeous to see how this is growing now and how filled it is, and you can just see how variegated it is as well. I'm just like, I'm in love. I don't really see Jhetty that often. I don't know why. I don't know if they're just uncommon or what. I feel like the one I always see is like the like watermelon one, or it's like shaped like a watermelon. Oh, I might be wrong, but in general, I am just really proud that I was able to get it back to some sort of glory. I'm actually happy it's in a smaller pot in general now. I think it just looks more cutesy. I will say, the more this grows out, the more this looks like one of them fake plants you would get at Target, if you know what I'm talking about. Not that I hate it, but I'm like, you do kind of look a little fake at times. And for whatever reason, this has been what it's been working on. It pushed out this really long, like, vine. I think that's what the term would be. Yeah? Oh, I don't know. Push this out, and I don't really know what it's doing, and it's also going away from the window. It's like going behind the bookshelf. So I'm kind of just letting it do its thing, but it's growing, and I'm happy that it's growing. So next up, I have something super sad looking. This right here is my Philodendron El Choco Red. If you saw the reel that I posted and or TikTok that I posted when I first potted this up, she was everything. She was gorgeous, she was beautiful. I still get people who like and comment on that video being like, this is gorgeous. And like, I can't give an update because what the hell is this? I can't update this. This is so sad. So this is what I'm working with now. It had spider mites, it had scale, it had probably other issues with it that I didn't realize. It did have mealies at one point. She has literally been through the trenches. Every war you can imagine, she was front and center, and you can see it. I'm so mad about it, but it's still trying. It's pushing out a new leaf, so like, go girly, like give it your all, but I generally think it's time for me to cut this one and try to regrow the roots and then try something else. I think it's a mixture of just all the pest issues, and I think the self-watering pot wasn't a good call for this plant. The color, yes. I will say the combination for the plant and the pot, iconic. I ate that. I'm gonna take all the credit for that. The longevity of it, I did not eat. I flopped bad. But you gotta try to learn, you know what I mean? So I'm not butthurt from it, but it definitely sucks to see it not do so good. But I mentioned earlier, when I do cut this, I think I'm gonna put the Jungle Boogie in this. The dark green foliage and then the red undertones. And it's self-watering, I think I'm cooking. I think that is the true combination that I need to happen. But I'm gonna let this leaf do its thing. I'm gonna laugh when it comes out and it looks sad and pathetic, and then I'll probably cut it. So that's where I'm at with the El Choco Red. Next up, I have a little sneaky one that's kind of hiding, but not really. You probably saw it. This is my Hoya undulata. She's screaming at me. She wants to literally be potted up so bad, and I literally won't do it because I'm lazy. I do think at some point I will try to do some pon and see if that helps. I was told with undulatas that they like higher humidity, and I was like, well, I don't know. I feel like mine would be dead, but then I like realized it's in the humidifier, so I'm like, okay, maybe that's why it's still alive. But when I did get it, it had a tendril and it was looking good, and then it crisped up. So another part of me is like, can this even grow anything else? I feel like I'm in like that situation where, like, you know, when at the grocery stores you see the little Hoya carry-eye, little heart Hoyas, and they just stick the leaf in, and like obviously it roots, but then like you don't really get anything out of it usually. I'm kind of worried that that's my situation, and if it is, we're gonna make the best of it. I'm gonna make this the cutest little like leaf setup possible, but I'm also hoping it still could grow something like another growth point or some form, and I'm not super SOL. This is, I think, one of like the #1 Hoyas that I wanted. I just love when they are sun stressed, and I think the blooms are absolutely gorgeous, and I really want something to come out of it, but I also need to put effort into it for that to happen, and I'm not. So I can't complain too much, but I still hope I can rebound this in some form. The next one that I want to talk about, I'm not grabbing because that's a pain. This is my Philodendron bipennifolium. You can't see the biggest leaf, or not the biggest, the newest leaf, but it has grown a ton, and it's honestly super cool to see it grow the way that it has on just this bamboo stick pretty much. When I initially got this all set up, it was like down to here, and now it's like about to touch the ceiling, which is so cool. I will be 100% honest, I'm kind of done with this plant. She kind of needs to hit the road. I love it. We've had a really good time. Such a good experience. Now, my problem is one, it's grown out too much, and two, I just don't really feel like I can have this in my house, but also have the Florida green. And a part of me naturally likes the leaf shape of the Florida green more than I like the leaf shape of the bipinifolia. I kind of want to do what I did for this one for the Florida green and then like sell this one. I don't know. Plus, I'm gonna move with this and I'm gonna snap it. I can already feel it. Like, how the hell am I gonna get that in a car? Like, come on. I'm asking for trouble. So a part of me kind of wants to sell it and get rid of it, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll like chop it up and maybe I'll just take like the top part and like try to grow it out that way. I don't know. It was fun. I think it like was really fitting for the space, but now that I'm like moving and stuff, I kind of just am like, peace, thank you. We had so much fun. Love you tons. Kind of call it a day from there. But I am very happy with the growth and I am happy with the size of the leaves. It does feel good to see it progress the way that it did. The next one that I have is another one of like my all-time faves, and she is just down bad. And it's all my fault. This is my Anthurium veitchii. So if you've seen any videos in the past, I've talked about this plant before, and this was also one of those plants that I ended up moving into soil. The difference though is I kept this one in the 6-inch pot, but just the same exact nursery pot that I had, but just put soil in it. It was growing roots. I did dig and look, and then I repotted it, and I know that was probably stupid of me to do, but I couldn't help it because I was scared it was dying because I lost so many leaves. And now I have this leaf, which was the last biggest leaf it gave me, but like, hello. And then this was the other newest leaf that it gave me, and now we're dealing with that. And so I know it's probably rotting from the inside out, and I'm so mad, and I need to do something, but I'm not gonna do anything probably until I move because I am overwhelmed is the best way to put it. But I am gonna try to save this one. I think my next move for anthuriums, because I do love anthuriums and I want anthuriums, and I probably could just keep them in the moss and it isn't that big of a deal. If I don't wanna do moss next, I think I might try pon or something on that form. I feel like that could be a good option for them, and I think I might be able to find like a happy balance. Even the new growth though, you can see has darkened and started to yellow. So I generally do think I don't have too much time left before this is a issue. So hopefully I can get to it before it gets too bad. And if not, I will be buying another one because this is like my favorite anthurium. The next plant I want to talk about is going to be a Ripsalis that I think kind of started it all for me and like my love and appreciation for the genus, and that is my Ripsalis paradoxa. Come on. It's so sick. It's such a pretty plant. It's so cool looking. I believe it's also known as like the chain link plant or like chain something. I just know it from its like Latin name or whatever, but I love this Ripsalis. And can we also talk about all the new growth, like new growth, new growth, new growth. We got some new growth there, all new growth on the bottom right here. Like, she's on fire. Like, she's killing it right now. I cannot hype this plant up more. If you get an opportunity, like get yourself a Ripsalis. On top of them just being super easy going to take care of, they're also easy to propagate. I have a propagation going on right now and it's pushing out new growth like crazy. It's probably time to get it potted up and everything, which is also so exciting, but I literally cannot say enough good things about Ripsalis in general. Like, truly something just so fun and so laid back. And honestly, in the new place, I kind of want to find a shelf because it's getting so long and I want it to get longer. But even if not, I'm totally cool to get some cuttings because like I said, these root up so quickly and they're just fun. They're just so cool. Like, how could you hate something like this? She's kind of everything. This next one is like, when I say I'm proud, I am proud. This right here is my Platycerium superbum. Can we just talk about how gorgeous the newest leaf is? Like, come on. My love for Platyceriums is getting more and more intense as the days go on. I just love everything about these plants. I think they're so cool. The variety of them are so cool. And like, I'm also just so proud to see this doing so good. When I got this, it was in a 4-inch pot. It was doing okay, and then I think I started messing up, and it was kind of starting to fight for its life. And then I mounted it, and now look at where we're at. I literally thought I was gonna kill it when I mounted it, and it's doing so good. Like, I just can't explain how proud I am of this plant. It's so cool to see it growing and thriving the way that it is. The fact that it's already getting to the point where it's starting to cover the moss mounts, like, I don't know, this is just such a rewarding plant. I feel like platyceriums don't get enough appreciation. I think they get like slightly hated on. No, that's a lie. I shouldn't say hated on. I just don't think they get enough appreciation, and I think they should. And if people are like scared about them, they shouldn't be, because they're so laid back. Literally, as soon as the moss is dry, sink, soak, throw it back on the wall, we're done. Like, it's perfect. Like, if it came down to it, if I could only have a certain type of plants, I would be okay with only having literally like platyceriums, ripsalis, hoyas, and codex plants. Like, I'm sold. That's all I need to have like a good collection. I will miss my anthuriums and my philodendrons and all the other stuff, but like, these are too fun. These are so fun. I advise anyone and everyone, get yourself a little bifurcanum, get yourself a little piece of like cork bark, and like start practicing and mounting. You're gonna have something so fun so quickly. I cannot hype this up enough. Next up, we have a massive, a massive one that I don't know how I'm gonna show without destroying everything in its way. This is my Cocos nucifera. Cocos nucifera. In like the 2023 video, I pronounced this plant with such confidence, and I butchered the name so badly that like it haunts me a little bit, and so I'm scared I'm butchering it again. But I'm so sure it's Cocos nucifera. Nucifera. It's nucifera. Watch me be so wrong. Either way, this is the coconut palm. So I think you can see the coconut itself, and then these are the big old leaves that it produces. I just love this plant. It's a coconut. I literally have a coconut in my living room. Like, come on, that's so fun. I just love everything about it. Now, in regards to care and growth, it's been doing good. It was growing on me slow for a while, and then I realized it had spider mites, so I'm pretty sure that was the cause of it. Now that I was treating it, it started pushing out this really big leaf that's right in the center, and now there's new growth coming in right here as well. So we're on the right track, I think. I just unfortunately think this guy has been fighting spider mites longer than I realize. But I am trying to keep an eye on it. I'm trying to maintain it and treat it every week if I can. And I'm just kind of watching to see what happens next. Once another leaf comes out, maybe 2, I'll cut off some of the like ugly brown ones, especially the one that's front and center, because they're not awful, but you can definitely see like the spider mite damage and some of the stuff that it had to go through. So it would be nice to get rid of those ones so it wasn't so ugly. But even too, the newest leaf that came out has the same type of spider mite damage. It's just something that I am dealing with this plant, unfortunately, but cannot express how much I love this, and I think everyone should have a coconut in their living room. And if you don't, then something's wrong with you, because why wouldn't you want a coconut in your living room? Next up, I am going to talk about some air plants. I have right here my Tillandsia usinoides. This is also known as Spanish moss. I just love Spanish moss. I just love usinoides. They're so laid back, it's so easygoing, and it's grown so consistently for me. As long as it's getting bright light, you're kind of good. I would say if you're getting bright light and you have a humid spot like your bathroom, you literally will not have to do like anything for this. And that's like so nice, right? Since I've gotten it, I want to say it's grown probably about like that much. So I would say that's a decent amount of growth. And you can kind of see a little bit. It's so small, but they are starting to give me little flowers. I only got like 2 or 3, but still, I'm gonna take that as the assumption that it's happy. My only thing with this is, and this is a me problem, sometimes I forget to water it, and when you do, you will get some like crispiness on the backsides and whatnot. Well, not the backsides, but just crispiness on the plant. I generally think the crispiness for me, just being on one side, is more specific with the being like against the wall kind of situation, but still, I love usinoides. I highly recommend it. Like I said, if you have a nice bright area, you'll be fine. If you have a nice bright bathroom, you're golden. Like, you won't have to do anything for this guy. But since it's an air plant, all I do is just take it to the sink, I soak it, let it dry, and then I just put it right back in its spot. And it's been doing really good. I just try to do it once a week if I can. This one specifically, at least once a week. Anything longer, and you'll definitely see it probably crisp up a little bit unless the space is really humid. Now, the other one that I have here is my Tillandsia Xerographica. This thing's a tank. Like, I easily have gone like 2, if not 4 weeks in between waterings where I just forget about it because it just exists on top of my mirror, but it still just lives and grows. Yes, it's browning and kind of like wilted at the ends, and that's probably because of my choices, but in those regards, it's still giving me new growth. It's still doing really good. I love it. I just love it. And it's so cool to see such a big specimen as well. I think a lot of times you think air plants and you think like the cute little small ones. There's some really cool ones that are pretty big, and I highly recommend people mess with them more. I really feel like you don't see air plants too often in people's collections unless they're like really into air plants. But these are fun. I definitely think they're worth it. Those two are probably more of the easier going ones, at least in my opinion. This one being the most easygoing. If anything, people have a harder time accidentally overwatering or having them rot out than like underwatering them. So either way, I've had this one forever and it's grown consistently as well too. So it's a fun one. I definitely think it's one of the ones where if you haven't messed with air plants and you're interested, get yourself one of these, even if it's a smaller one, and just kind of exist with them. You'll enjoy them. They're really, really cool. The next plant that I have here is going to be my Ficus umbellata. She's a little goofy looking, but we're making it work. She had spider mites as well. I feel like that's like a common thing with umbellatas. And now that I'm saying this, I'm like, yeah, this whole side just has spider mites because they're all probably close together, but I have been treating it and it is getting better. And for the most part, like, I'm not mad at it. Is it the prettiest looking thing? No. We're looking at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is gonna be way better. I can tell you that. Overall though, it's a pretty laid back ficus. I do like them because they do produce really pillowy big leaves. A fun fact about umbellatas, if you didn't know, the more light they get, the smaller the leaves usually come out. The less light they give, the larger and more pillowy the leaves usually are. Now, tread carefully with that information because I'm not telling you to go put this in a dark bathroom and then you're gonna have like these big old pillowy leaves. It's more so if it's getting like more direct light per se, you're probably gonna get smaller leaves. And the reason being, if it's getting enough light to maintain, it doesn't need to push out something bigger. But if it has to fight or work a little bit harder to get more light, it's going to want to naturally push out something a little bit bigger. So where I have mine, it does get a decent amount of direct light, which is why I feel like a lot of these leaves are just kind of naturally smaller in general. There's a lot of other factors that play into it. That is something that I think is really interesting about this plant because, and this isn't the only plant that's like this, like there's others, but you think more light, bigger leaves, better things, but it does sometimes cause it to be smaller, which is just an interesting kind of fact there for you. Next up, I have my other problem child. This is my Hoya australis. I'm being so careful not to like fling this around because this one's also fighting mealy bugs as well. Between this and the Crimson Queen, those are my two that I just cannot seem to win with. But I will say with this one, I am very, very proud of this plant. You can kind of see there's a lot of that darker foliage that's in there now. It is pushing out new growth like crazy, and it's all sun stressed, so it's really, really pretty to see. This plant was definitely struggling. I was losing a decent amount of leaves, and you can even see some of the older leaves are kind of just naturally tinted yellow now. They're not really doing much, which, you know, is a bummer, but seeing all that new growth is definitely a very exciting thing. I just need to take care of the spider, or not the spider mites, excuse me. I just need to take care of the mealies. And that's the biggest issue that I have at hand. It's just, they're so hard to get rid of. They just won't leave me alone. I'll figure out something one day. I know I should be maintaining and spraying this down a little bit more than I probably do, but like when I say I'm tired of this plant, I am tired of this plant. I'm tired on the same wavelength that I am tired with the other Hoya that I mentioned prior. It is a really easygoing Hoya. If you ever get a chance to have a Hoya australis and you just want something that's gonna like vine and take over a space, especially if you have a lot of bright light, go for it. You're gonna have a really good experience with this. I feel like that's the one thing I can say with mine. No matter what, as long as this thing was on a west-facing window, it was pushing out new growth for me. I will say I do love how it is trellis. I am really proud of like the overall look of this Hoya and even the pot as well too. I think it's cute, especially now with the darker foliage in the pot. I think it's kind of a little bit more of a little bit of contrast, but other than that, my only dream is no mealies, but I don't know how real that dream is at this point. So we made it over to the corner here, and the next one that we are going to be showing is none other than my big old grocery store Monstera Tycon. This angle is so much better than the one I did in my last video. I was kind of struggling to show it off, but this is definitely doing a good job, I think, of showing off how freaking massive this plant is. Once again, I got this at a grocery store. I was so excited, and I am just in love with this plant. Another reason why I want to sell the other Monstera, because I don't need another one like this. I don't need another one of that when I have something like this, is pretty much what I'm trying to say. Since I brought it in, it has been doing so well. It's loving the west-facing window, and I am very scared to take it to the new place because I won't have a west-facing window. So definitely gonna need some supplementary light for this one as well, but in regards, it's been laid back. It's exactly what you expect from a Thai if you have a Tycon. I just let this thing go freaking bone dry because they are super prone to root rot. So I kind of just been letting it exist in this pot, and once we move, I'll probably end up repotting it. It doesn't dry out too quick, but it's definitely grown out of this pot and it probably needs a new home. And I will do it, I swear. I don't want anything bad to happen to this. I do have to say, for finding this at a grocery store, this is probably the best grocery store find I have ever had. I don't know if it'll ever top this, to be honest, because once again, this thing is freaking massive. Next up, we have a very fun one. This one I had sneaked over here once I moved this little cabinet, and it's been existing and doing okay, but it really hasn't done much, and I don't expect it to do much. But this is my monkey's tail cactus. I don't remember the Latin name. I think it does start with a C, but I'm probably wrong. This guy is just so cool. This was one of those ones where when I was selling a lot of the stuff that I had outside, I just couldn't get rid of this one. I was like, this is too fun. This is too funky. And it's kind of hard to find a big mature one, which, okay, this isn't mature, but at least a bigger size one and not one that's in like a 4-inch pot with like one arm for like 30 bucks. So I was super excited to get my hands on one of these. They are gorgeous. It's super pretty. This is another one that I'm so excited to put on the balcony because I think it's finally gonna do good. Hoping it's gonna give me some new growth in general. I don't have much to say on it though. Like, since I moved in here, she's been with us. That's it. She's been coasting in the background. She's been doing her own thing. There really hasn't been any progress with this plant. No decline, but no progress. So I can't really complain considering that it's lived inside this apartment for the last like 9 months. Pretty happy with where it's at that point. The next one that I want to show is one that I'm absolutely done with, and I was considering selling, but I really think I should just like toss because it's just such a mess now. This is my philodendron silver sword. Like, what the hell is this? I have no answers. I have nothing to really say on it. It was on a moss pole, but it wasn't doing anything on said moss pole. So I was like, I'm just gonna take it off. And I thought, oh, maybe I can have it like trail and it would look like super cool. And it's like, oh wow, like that's not something it should be doing. No, it just looks ugly. It looks so ugly. It's just not pretty in any form. So I'm done with it. I like want to toss it out. I don't even want this pot. I don't even think this pot's that nice. Like, I'm just like, I'm good. I don't need anything with this plant anymore. It's done its job, and I feel like keeping it any longer is just like torturing it. Like, what is she gonna do? What is her options? It's nothing. It's either chop it and prop it, which I don't care to have a silver sword in my collection really. Yeah, I'm kind of just ready to get rid of this one overall. Maybe I'll put it up in a group. It doesn't have any pest issues. It has nothing going on with it. I just don't like it anymore. It's not what I want out of a silver sword, nor do I think I really care to have a silver sword anymore. The next one I want to show is my little Marimo, my moss ball Marimo. I always forget the name for these ones. All I remember was when I had this, I thought like I was potentially gonna get in trouble because these became like really problematic to have. I don't know if it's an Arizona thing. It might be, it might not be, but I guess a lot of plant stores and stuff had to get rid of theirs because there was an invasive like species of mussel, I think called a zebra mussel, that was living inside of these, and then people would flush them down the toilet for whatever odd reason, and those mussels were just like jacking up them pikes. Like, they were not playing around. So they made everyone get rid of them. So I thought by having one, I was like doing something illegal, which what the hell are they gonna do? Bust down my door and take my moss ball? Like, let's be real. But either way, I think now you can get them. I don't think you can find them like in stores, but you can order them online. So I don't really know that situation with enough confidence to like explain it all other than what I have explained now. The water is pink and it's because of these rocks. My friend gifted this to me a while back and I've kept the rocks, and every time I change the water, I hope that it won't change colors because I thought, oh, well, like I've changed it so many times, it should be fine. No, it still changes colors. So I'm just kind of like, eh. It's about time to change the water. I usually let it get down to this low, and then afterwards I dump it out. I clean all the rocks and I clean everything out, and then I just rinse it really thoroughly. And I typically only try to use RO water. I don't really think it makes a difference, but I also know that these grow in like really cold water, so I'll put ice in it usually as well too, kind of just to fill up the top, and then by the time it melts, it goes through the cycle. So it's usually every couple of weeks I take care of this one, but it's a cool thing to have. I think it would be fun to do something interesting with it and maybe change out the rocks in the future, but I'm kind of content with the little vase that it's in and how it looks now. I just don't like that the water changes to like a pinkish hue after like a week because it's kind of gross. The next one I want to show is going to be this little cutie here. So once again, I'm bringing in these cute little teacups. This is my Tillandsia ionatha. So if you remember in like previous videos, I had a huge ionatha clump. I messed up so bad with that clump, and one time I watered it and forgot it in the sink, and it was laying on one side, so that whole side rotted. After that, all hell broke loose and like nothing really was working out. So this was like one of the last remaining like healthy chunks, so I just ripped that whole thing off, and it's been existing since then. It's growing, it's doing good. My only problem is I kind of forget it over here. So I kind of forget to mist it as often as I should, but it is growing, so I'm not mad. These are pretty easygoing, I would say. This is also another one where if you wanted something maybe not smaller, you just don't like how the Xerographica looked, probably get one of these and you'd probably be fine. If you ever do find like a clump of them, the clumps are also really cool too. I'm a big fan of those, but there's not much else to say with them. Once a week, just giving it a good mist. And then when I'm done, I usually flip it upside down and I have it like sit on top of the pot so it can drain out and it's not just sitting wet the entire time. Because that's usually the issue with them. People will water them, put them right back in, and or not let the water drain out of the center part, and then it just rots from the inside out. So next up, I want to talk about my Hoya globulosa. So I'm pretty sure you have a good view of this overall. This is a super fun Hoya. I have it in like this cute little pink pot. That's another thing I like about Hoyas. You can kind of put them in smaller pots, and I think it's just like cute and dainty, and it doesn't take up too much space, and it's kind of like a nice combo. Obviously you gotta water it a little bit more often, but that's fine. Especially because Hoyas are also kind of hardy, so if you forget to do that watering, you're not like SOL, like how I am with the Passifloras, for example. But when I got it, it was probably about like yay tall, and so it's grown a decent amount, and it is still pushing out leaves. I kind of just am letting it exist. I had it on a south-facing window for a while, and the leaves were small, so I think it was too much light that it didn't need to push out those bigger leaves. So I kind of pulled back, and I'm hoping this area is a little bit better. These leaves are definitely getting a little bit bigger and kind of pushing more towards these base leaves, which is making me feel a lot better. I think I kind of found like the sweet spot for it in general. Overall though, it has been vining up and doing all kinds of things. I was trying to get it to like curve and like wrap around the little wooden mount right there because I thought it'd be super cute. I might still try it once it grows out a little bit longer, but also I move soon, so I don't think it will get long enough for me to be able to do that, unfortunately. But overall, it's been a really laid back Hoya. I definitely feel like I'm starting to see the globulosa become a little bit more easier to get a hold of, which is always nice to see, especially with Hoyas in general, because you kind of have your like 5 or 6 that come to mind that are somewhat easy and accessible, and then a lot of the other ones, like the ones that I mentioned, like you don't really find unless you're going to like plant events or you're shopping online or you're specifically looking for that plant. So the more Hoyas we can naturally find in like our local nurseries and things like that, the better, in my opinion. It's a pretty cool Hoya, I think. I like how it's fuzzy underneath, and then I think the leaf shape is also pretty interesting. I don't think this is the biggest the leaves can get, so I'm wondering if they have an even more different shape as they mature, but I still am a big fan of it overall. And then the next one that we have here is my other anthurium, the one that is still in moss and is still not giving me any issues. I know there's that yellow leaf. That's because it needs to go, and I just haven't cut it in a long time. This is my Anthurium pallidiforum. I love this long strappy anthurium. I've had it in a kokedama for a while now, and it's been doing really good. It's actually in the process of blooming, which I know I probably should cut it because then it will push out a new leaf, but I kind of like to let the plant just do its thing. I don't really care about the blooms. It is really cool though because now I can touch it and there's definitely pollen on it, which is so sick. I feel like people who are really into anthuriums and know how to cross-pollinate are probably like, collect it. I don't have any other anthuriums to cross-pollinate with, and with me moving, there's just no way. I know people will like put it in tin foil and then fold it up and then put it in the freezer, and I think you have like 2 weeks. By the time 2 weeks pass, I will literally still be fighting for my life trying to set up that new apartment. So there's no point, at least in my opinion, but it is doing pretty good. I think it is time to redo the kokedama. One, the string is like really messed up on my part because I did it really rough, and it's grown out a lot more, and I kind of want to get this part into like moss as well. So I definitely want to shape it out. It is pushing out a new leaf as well, so that's another reason why I need to just get rid of this one. This was the second to last leaf, and then this was the last leaf. So I don't think it's suffering, but I definitely think it needs something, especially since that other leaf came out smaller. It also could have been just too long in between waterings because I sometimes do push it with this one. But besides that point, I think it's doing pretty good, and I'm a huge fan of it in general. The last one in this little corner here is going to be my Euphorbia trigona. I haven't moved this one in a long time, and I probably shouldn't be picking it up, but here I am. So let me see if I can show the top. Okay, it's a lot taller than I thought. This is the trigona. So this one I have a deep connection with because I took these out of the trash can at my old apartment. They cut up a bunch and they threw them in there, and I was elbow deep in there, like pulling them out while the people that just cut them were watching me. They probably thought I was psychotic. And originally I didn't think it was gonna survive, but it just clicked one day. It like rained for whatever reason, and it just started growing, and I could tell it like kind of situated, and I was super excited. I think I can put it down. You can still see at least the new growth. Yeah. So since it started growing again, this right here has all been new growth in like the past like week. And all of this up here has been new growth as well too. The little arms are also putting some new growth as well. So in general, she's looking really good. I love this one. It's also so crazy because it's getting like as tall as me. And when I initially got it, it was probably the tallest point. I don't even think you can see it on the camera. Yeah. It was probably like down to here, and then the other one was even shorter. So it has grown a lot since I've had it, and it's so cool to see, and it's been such a laid back plant. I think when I move it outside in this balcony, it's gonna do so good. I think I was really lucky to have that west and south facing windows because I think it's been enough light, but I feel like that temperature is a huge aspect to it too, and I think that's gonna really help it out as well. At least hopefully, watch it like cook it and like not do good. I'm hoping that's not the case, but we'll kind of see there, but can't complain. Like I said, I love euphorbias. I think there's so many cool specimens out there, and really, the trigona is one of the ones that you run into more commonly. So if you're interested in them, try a trigona and then gauge it out. It's going down out there, shoot. Definitely get one, try them out. I really like them. I think they're really sick. And you can usually find, like I said, cuttings online for stupid cheap or like in local groups and whatnot as well. So even if you just want to give it like a little shot, get a cutting, stick it in soil, you'll be golden. They root up pretty easily. It's just slow more than anything. We are right at the finish line. I have, I think, like 3 more plants to pretty much show y'all, and then that's everything that I have in my collection at the moment. I want to obviously talk about this beauty here. This is my Pachira aquatica. I gave her a shout out, I think, in the last video because of just how well it's been growing and how gorgeous the leaves are getting, and I won't go into too much detail because of that, but you can kind of just see it is so cool to see how big these leaves are getting on this thing. I definitely want to trim it up. I kind of decided once I move that's going to be the plan, and then I'll kind of adjust from there, but I have nothing but good things to say about this. If you ever want like a really chill plant, I definitely think Pachira aquaticas or money trees are pretty easygoing. This one's also fun because a lot of times you see them in the braided form, and I think you can see from that angle, this is like a big old stump. And I don't know, I think the big stump just adds like a lot more character to it, which, you know, is always fun. Next up, right on this side table here, I have my adenium. So she's not looking the best right now, but it has produced a ton of new growth and is definitely looking a lot healthier now. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if it's just a weather thing. The temperature in here stays consistent, so that's why I wasn't sure if that was what the issue was and what was causing a lot of those leaves to like brown out and like die, or even too, I was getting a lot of yellow leaves as well. So I was having a hard time figuring it out, but literally like 2 weeks ago, it started blooming like crazy on the longest piece here. And I had like 5 or 6 blooms on the top and it was so pretty. And I don't know if I took a photo because life's been busy, but I did definitely stop to admire it. I definitely want to go through and take off all the brown leaves and just kind of see where I'm at, because I know it's growing and it's growing consistently. I feel comfortable enough to do it. I also really want to repot this because I want to lift off the caudex and see kind of what we're working with, because I feel like it's been growing for a while now. I've had this plant for a decent amount of time, so I feel like the repotting for this one's gonna be so freaking sick when it's time. If you didn't know, a lot of times with adeniums, you can pretty much, when it's time to repot after, you know, relatively probably like a year at least, you can lift up the plant a little bit higher than what it's at now, and you'll get to see how it is grown. And a lot of times they have really unique shapes to them and they're just so funky and fun. I love these. This is another one that I'm excited to put outside. I think in general it's going to do a lot better, but this also might be one that I wait before I do it. Like I said, we're still just in the 90s at the moment, so it's not too hot, but I'm a little nervous if I put stuff out after it being like, I think consistently like the highest in here is like 78. I feel like that 20-degree jump might be a little too much for some of them. So we'll kind of wait and see, but I do generally love this one so much. So the last one that I have to talk about today is going to be my big old ponytail palm that I got a while back. It's hard for me to really grab it and to show it because of how big it is. So I'm just gonna go through and turn the camera and you should be able to kind of see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. So it is going to be this guy here. Now it's pushing out a lot of new growth in general, but I still think this one just needs to be outside. And I think once I do move it outside, it's gonna start doing a lot better. It has grown a decent amount for me in regards to like the newer leaves and stuff, but there is just something kind of weird about it. It's almost like they're coming out on one side and it's causing them to naturally kind of rip and tear. So I don't know, I'm assuming it just wants maybe a little bit more like heat or like a type of weather situation. I haven't really figured out what it is, but moving to this new place, my biggest thought process next is to go through and do that. But you can literally see like this one is pretty much all ripped off. This one's ripped off. This one's also ripped. It's kind of weird. And that also could have been some of that older growth because I did trim a decent amount of it off, but not all of it originally. So I think that could be the case. But either way, I do love it. I love the shape and the bottom part. I don't know if you can see the base. If not, I'll get a good shot of it. It feels very whimsical. It feels like something you would see like in a fantasy type of a scenario. I don't know. I just really appreciate the base of it and also just how the trunk has grown. I like the little curvature to it. It's one of those situations kind of like the Dracaena that I mentioned before where a lot of the character really comes out once they have time to grow. And that's exactly why I think I love this one so much. I used to have a smaller one, and as soon as I found this guy, I ended up selling it because I was like, this has so much character and that small one's gonna take like 10 years before I'm ever able to get it to anywhere like this. So it's really cool to see, and I very much appreciate it. And it's also safe for pets. So my cat has been having a lot of fun jumping on the couch and like playing with the little hanging leaves. Final count is in and I got 79, which is so crazy because I think in the video I had like 100 plus. So for me to feel like I have that many is like, oh, I know I have stuff from like an inventory's perspective, but even in my own personal collection, I still feel like I have so much. But it is kind of cool to see my collection sort of shrink. Not that I don't want to have plants, obviously, but I do feel like I'm kind of starting to clear out things that I've had for a while and like get rid of things that just aren't bringing me joy. I forgot what her name is, but you know what I'm talking about. Overall, though, it is really cool to just see how my space has grown and how it looks. I also really appreciate this video because to me, this is kind of like my final sign off, my last little video in regards to this apartment and all the memories and the things that I have attached to this place. This place does mean a lot to me. I admire the location, the view, just everything about this place, the vibe that was able to be brought into here. Like everything about it just means the world to me. It wasn't the perfect layout. It wasn't the perfect setup, at least in my head. There was so much I wanted to do, but it is what it is. I'm happy to see where it ended up overall. I definitely am going to take some photos of the place before we start to shred things down, because now after this video, I am going to start packing. So you will be seeing a moving video hopefully shortly after this one, but I am going to have a long time of editing. I can already feel it. Last time I checked, there was like 140 gigabytes worth of stuff that I recorded just today for this video, so I have a lot to do in regards of editing. But thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, definitely give me a thumbs up. Hit the sub button if you haven't. It means the world and it helps me out a ton. Share it with a friend, you know, all that good stuff. I will hopefully be posting another video soon. The next one will definitely be the moving video. I just am not going to promise any more times because every time I do, I flop. And I'm not going to promise my flops anymore. Other than that, I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their day or night, wherever they may be. And I'll catch you in the next one. Later.